I've had enough. I hate to ask, but can I stay at your place for a few days? My dad stood at my door, looking defeated. My sisters and mom had kicked him out of the house. Seeing my once strong father talk about reaching his limit made me feel responsible. I couldn't help but blame myself. I'm sorry, Dad, I said, trying to apologize for not being able to ease his pain. But before I could say more, my husband Ethan spoke up. Let's have your dad live with us. Are you sure? I asked, surprised. Even my dad was shocked, his eyes wide. My name is Emily. I'm 26 years old. Ethan and I started dating in college, and we've been married for 2 years. We have a good balance between work and home, and Ethan has always been my biggest supporter. He gives me confidence, and I feel lucky to be with him. I'm the youngest of 3 sisters. Growing up, I always felt like I couldn't stand up to my mom or sisters. I was often ignored and treated as the least important. Whenever I shared my thoughts, I would get harsh comments in return. So eventually, I stopped speaking up. I hid my feelings and did whatever I was told without complaining. Mom often made hurtful comments like, I wanted a boy, but when I found out you were another girl, I was disgusted. Grace and Ashley are enough for girls. You're not wanted here, but if you want to stay, you have to work. Even when I wanted to respond, I stayed quiet, swallowing my words. By the time I was in elementary and middle school, I was doing most of the housework, cooking, laundry, and preparing baths. People around me would say things like, wow, that's impressive, or you're so responsible. At first, I liked the praise, but soon, it became a routine, and I stopped feeling proud. My mom never thanked me. Instead, she criticized my cooking or the way I folded laundry. The one person who kept me going was my dad. Unlike mom and my sisters, Dad loved and respected me. He was always there for me. As the only man in the family, my dad wasn't well liked by my mom and sisters. Like me, he had little power in the household, but no matter what, he always stood up for me. I'm sorry, Emily, you have to put up with so much. I wish we could all live in peace, Dad would say, holding me tight. Even though he worked long hours, he always spent his days off with me, helping fulfill my mom and sister's demands. He listened to me and cared about how I felt, but my mom and sisters didn't like that. They'd say things like, there's no one to protect you today, and make me do more chores. They'd throw harsh words at Dad, too, calling him things like low income and disgusting. My sisters would laugh and tell him, don't open your mouth. Even though Dad tried to support me, the constant mistreatment from my mom and sisters made me feel weaker over time. Seeing how much I was struggling, Dad said something to me when I started high school. Emily, study hard and go to college. Leave this house and live your own life. You have so many possibilities. You don't have to stay here forever, Dad urged. Hearing him say that made me feel both excited and nervous. At the time, my oldest sister Grace, 6 years older than me, was attending a private university. Ashley, 4 years older, was in vocational school. Mom would often mock Dad for not making enough money and would tell me, we're poor because he doesn't bring in enough. You should start working once you graduate high school. Because of that, I believed we were financially struggling, so when Dad told me to go to college, I worried he was pushing himself too hard, but Dad reassured me, saying, there's no need to worry about money. I feel responsible for making you suffer so much, and I don't want you to endure this any longer. Dad, I started, but he continued, this is a request from your father. Don't worry about anything, just go to the university you want, study what you love, and find your passion. I want you to live a happy life to make up for all the hardship you've gone through, Dad said, gripping my shoulder with tears in his eyes. His words were full of determination. From that moment, I focused on the studies I had neglected. Despite still following the strict orders of my mom and sisters, I spent all my remaining time at my desk, studying hard. My efforts paid off when I was accepted into a university. Dad and I hugged each other, full of joy over my achievement. I kept it a secret from my mom and sisters until the last minute. On the day I was moving out, I finally told them that I was going to college and living on my own. By that time, Grace had already moved out, leaving just Mom and Ashley at home. When they found out, they yelled at me in anger, but I endured their harsh words, and at last, I broke free from them. I kept my new mobile phone, a gift from Dad, hidden from them. I didn't tell them where I was going to university or where I was living. I stayed in touch with Dad, but I started a new life without any involvement with my mom or sisters. However, just because I escaped from them didn't mean my university life was easy. I wasn't used to speaking my mind, and being shy. I felt invisible in my classes and had trouble making friends. That's when Ethan reached out to me. "What do you think, Emily?" he asked one day. Ethan was bright, confident, and popular in the group, so I was shocked that he was speaking to me. I was already uncomfortable talking in front of others, and being put on the spot made me freeze, but Ethan pressed on. "You have thoughts, right? Share them. We won't know unless you speak up." At first, I thought Ethan was pushy and didn't care about how others felt, but over time, I saw his kindness and how he respected other people's opinions. Thanks to him, I started making friends. Soon enough, I found myself drawn to Ethan, and by our third year of university, we started dating. When I told Dad about Ethan, he was thrilled and congratulated me. He celebrated every milestone in my life: when I found a job, when Ethan and I moved in together, and when we decided to get married. Dad shared in my happiness as if it was his own. Even though I was happy, I was always worried about Dad. Since I had started university, I hadn't gone back home, and I hadn't seen him in person. We kept in touch, but I couldn't help but worry, knowing he was still living with Mom and my sisters. I was sure Dad was still dealing with cruel remarks from Mom and Ashley, and spending his days following their controlling demands. "Dad, I'm happy today because of everything you did for me. Back then, I was powerless and always needed your help, but things are different now. I have a job, I'm married, and I have someone who supports me. Now it's my turn to help you. Please, let me know if you ever need anything."
I told him this when I announced my marriage. Being with Ethan had taught me the importance of expressing my feelings, and I was finally able to say things to Dad that I couldn't before. He simply replied, "Thank you," but 2 years have passed since then, and Dad has never asked me for help. Recently, I heard that Grace, who had been living on her own, quit her job and moved back to our parents' house. This only made me worry more about Dad. One day, while I was telling Ethan how concerned I was, the doorbell rang. It was late December, and though it wasn't even 4 p.m., it was already getting dark outside. We weren't expecting any deliveries, so we were surprised when we looked at the intercom screen. The person on the camera was Dad. I rushed to the front door, and for the first time in 8 years, I saw him. His cheeks were sunken, and his hair had turned mostly white. He looked sick and frail. I instantly knew this wasn't just a casual visit. "Dad, what happened? Please come inside. It must be freezing out there," I said, noticing he was only wearing trousers and a long-sleeved shirt, far too light for December weather. The reason for his thin clothes soon became clear when Dad spoke. He told me he had been kicked out of the house by Mom and my sisters. They told me to go buy dessert, so I went to the convenience store, but when I came back, the house was locked. I asked them to let me in, but they told me not to come back. "What?" I was shocked. "I left the house without my phone or jacket," Dad continued, rubbing his cold arms. "I waited for hours, but they never let me in." Hearing this, I quickly made some hot tea and handed it to Dad, trying to help him warm up. Dad held the cup of tea with both hands, trying to warm up, and quietly said, "I might not be able to go back to that house again." "Why?" I asked, worried. "Ever since Grace came back, Mom and the others have been treating me even worse. I've been feeling like I'm at my limit, and now they've done this to me. I don't even have the energy to go back. I think I'll look for a small apartment and figure out what to do next," Dad explained. "I'm sorry, but could I stay here for a few days? I'll leave as soon as I find a place." I was shocked. I knew Dad had been struggling, but I didn't realize it was this bad. For the first time, Dad, who never complained, was talking about reaching his limit. "I'm sorry, Dad," I began, feeling guilty for knowing about his troubles but not being able to help. Before I could finish, Ethan spoke up. "Let's have your father live with us." "Are you sure?" I asked, surprised. Dad, equally shocked, widened his eyes. "Sorry to be blunt, but your father doesn't look well," Ethan continued. "I think it would be best if we all live together so he can recover. We can figure out everything else later, as long as he's okay with it." Dad and I were both filled with gratitude. That's how our new life as a trio began. Just a few days after Dad moved in, the doorbell rang again. The three of us were stunned when we saw who was on the intercom: Mom and my sisters. "Why are they here?" I thought, feeling a mix of shock and bitter memories, but I knew I had to face them, so I opened the door, panicking about what they might do next. "Wow, I didn't expect you to be living in such a fancy place," Mom said, looking around. "I thought you were scraping by in some rundown apartment." Hearing her voice after so long made me feel nothing but resentment. "Why are you here?" I asked. "Your father's phone had your address in it. I didn't even know Emily had a mobile phone. Why would you give him your contact info and not us? Are you honoring the wrong person?" Grace sneered, looking down at me. Mom, smiling as if satisfied, spoke again. "Never mind, is your father here? We're having some trouble without him." Even though they said they were in trouble, none of them looked distressed. In fact, all three of them were smirking. "In trouble? You're the ones who kicked him out," I said. "You've gotten quite sassy, haven't you?" Mom snapped back. "So he is here. Move aside." "No," I firmly replied. I yelled at Mom and her group, my frustration rising. Mom's usual condescending remarks about me only made me angrier. In the past, I wouldn't have stood up to her, but I had changed, thanks to Ethan. Mom, irritated, raised her voice. "When did I give you permission to talk back? Just move. You can't even listen to what I say." "I'm not the same person I used to be. I won't let you push me around anymore." "Mom," I responded firmly. Ethan stood beside me, trying to get Mom and my sisters to leave, but they wouldn't budge. We kept telling them to go, but they refused. Finally, tired of the back and forth, Mom gave up first. "Fine, I don't want to hear any more from you," she snapped. "If you won't move, at least tell us when the money will be deposited into our account. It's so annoying that all you can do is put money in, and you can't even do that properly." I was speechless. How did Mom think she had been able to live without working? My anger boiled over. "From now on, Dad will be living with us," I declared. "Neither of us will be pushed around by you anymore. You should divorce Dad and stop causing him pain." I couldn't hold back my words any longer, but Mom's response was unexpected. "Don't make it sound like I'm the bad guy," she yelled. "I've been kind enough to stay with a man who's low income and useless. You should be thanking me." "What?" I was stunned. "You're just like your father, a low-income loser," she continued. "You act high and mighty, but all you do is lick each other's wounds." I was on the verge of losing control, ready to lash out, but before I could say anything, Ethan spoke up. "Emily works hard. She's a supervisor and earns a good salary. I'd appreciate it if you didn't belittle us by saying we lick wounds," Ethan said, staring down my mom.
"Don't you dare talk back to me, you're an outsider, so stay out of this," Mom snapped at him. At that moment, Dad, who had been in the living room, appeared by my side. "I've heard enough," he said, addressing Mom. "We can't keep imposing on Emily and Ethan. Let's get a divorce." "Dad," I whispered, surprised. "That's fine," my sisters chimed in immediately. "We don't need a creepy guy like you," one of them shouted. Emboldened by my sisters, Mom agreed. "That's fine by me." I was shocked by how quickly it had been settled, but peace didn't last for long. "There's one condition," Mom added. "Hand over the house to me, and then I'll give you the divorce." I couldn't believe her greed, but Dad quickly agreed to her demand. "Dad, are you sure?" I asked, concerned. I was shocked when Dad smiled at me and said, "If that's all it takes to get a divorce, it's a small price to pay." Then, turning serious, he faced Mom and said, "I'll do as you ask. Leave for today. I'll come over tomorrow." With that, Dad sent Mom and my sisters home. They continued insulting me until the very end, but I didn't care anymore. I felt guilty for pushing Dad into getting a divorce and causing him to lose the family home, but Dad patted my shoulder and reassured me, "It's not your fault, Emily. I'm actually glad you spoke up." The next day, Dad went back home one last time with the divorce papers. He made Mom sign them, handled the paperwork, and packed his things. When he returned, he looked lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. Although it was sad to see the house go to Mom and my sisters, if Dad felt relieved, I was okay with it. A few months later, Dad told me what had happened to Mom and my sisters. They had taken the house in the divorce, planning to sell it and live lavishly. However, the house was old, in a poor location, and didn't sell for much. The costs of demolishing it ate up most of the money. In the end, they were left with almost nothing. Now, without a home or savings, they struggled. Mom didn't work, and neither Grace nor Ashley had stable jobs. With Dad gone, the same man they mocked for his low income, they had no one to lean on financially and found themselves in dire straits. They tried coming to our house for help, showing up several times, but we never opened the door. They wouldn't give up, causing a commotion on the porch. Eventually, I had to tell them through the intercom, If you don't stop, I'll call the cops. That finally made them leave. Now they barely managed to rent a small apartment, too cramped for the three of them. Even Mom, who had never worked before, was forced to get a job out of desperation. Despite all the times they mocked Dad and me, they were now constantly arguing among themselves, blaming each other for their situation. It seems some people never change. Without Dad or me around, they turned on each other, destined to live in both physical and emotional poverty. Meanwhile, our lives have taken a completely different path. Despite all the mocking about Dad's low income, we found out after the divorce that he had been quietly trading stocks for years, building a fortune. He never mentioned it because he feared that Mom and my sisters would try to seize his assets, so he waited until the divorce was finalized. Now, we live comfortably in a new house Dad built with his wealth. He quit his job to focus on his stock investments. My husband and I are both working too, so we're financially stable. We support each other while maintaining our financial independence, and we're building the loving family that we couldn't have when we were younger.
The first time I saw the cabin, bathed in morning light with mist rising off the lake, I knew it had to be mine. Not just for me, for all of us. My family had never owned anything like this before, and I was going to be the one to change that. Funny how dreams can turn into nightmares. I'm Paris, and this is the story of how I bought my dream cabin, lost it to my own family's betrayal, and learned that sometimes the hardest thing isn't achieving your goals. It's protecting them from the people you love. You really did it, my mother Shanice whispered when I first showed them around. Her fingers traced the wooden banister, eyes wide as she took in the vaulted ceiling and wall of windows overlooking the water. How could you afford this? I've been saving for 3 years, Mum. Every bonus, every raise, living in that tiny studio apartment. I couldn't keep the pride from my voice. Worth every penny, right? My father, Norman, just grunted, already heading for the deck with his coffee. Classic Dad. Emotions weren't his thing. My sister Layla bounced from room to room, squealing about Instagram possibilities. "This room would be perfect for my meditation videos," she called from upstairs. "The lighting is everything." I smiled, picturing summer barbecues, Christmas mornings, family game nights by the stone fireplace. Sure, we had our issues. What family doesn't? But this place would bring us together. I was certain of it. The first red flag came 2 weeks later. I drove up for the weekend and found empty wine bottles in the recycling bin. Weird, since I hadn't been there in days. "Oh, I stopped by with the girls," Mum said when I called. "The key you gave us, we're allowed to use it, right?" "Of course," I said quickly. "Just maybe let me know next time." But they didn't. Instagram posts started popping up. Layla doing yoga on my deck, Mum hosting her book club in my living room. When I tried to plan a family weekend, there was always an excuse. "Oh, honey, this weekend's not good," Mum would say. "Your father has golf, and Layla's got that influencer thing." I swallowed my disappointment and focused on work. The cabin could wait. Family takes time to adjust, right? Then came the renovation demands. "The kitchen needs updating," Mum announced during a rare dinner together. "Those countertops are so dated, and the guest bathroom, that tile has to go." "I like it as is," I said. "Besides, I just spent my savings on—" "If you want us to spend time here, it needs to be presentable," she interrupted. "What will people think?" I gave in. Another loan, another 60-hour work week. The contractors came and went. Mum supervised everything while I was stuck in meetings. "Perfect timing," Layla texted me photos of the finished kitchen. "Just in time for my birthday weekend? The whole crew's coming up?" I frowned at my phone. "What birthday weekend?" "Mum didn't tell you. We planned it ages ago. You're probably too busy anyway, right?" That's when I decided to surprise them. I left work early on Friday, grabbed takeout for everyone, and drove the 2 hours to the cabin. The driveway was full of cars I didn't recognize. Music thumped through the walls. Through the windows I could see people dancing, drinking, definitely not just family. I pulled out my key, climbed the porch steps and tried the lock. Nothing. I tried again, still nothing. The key didn't fit. They'd changed the locks on my cabin. My cabin. I called Mum's cell. Once, twice, 3 times. Finally, she picked up. Paris, now's not a good time, sweetie. Mum, I'm outside. The key doesn't work. A pause. Music pulsed in the background. Oh, well, we needed some privacy this weekend. You understand, right? You're always so busy anyway. I heard Layla's voice, distant but clear. Is that Paris? Tell her it's invite only. Laughter erupted behind her. My stomach clenched as I stood there in the dark, holding bags of cooling food, staring at my own front door. Mum, I said, my voice shaking, this is my house. I bought it. I pay the mortgage. Don't be dramatic, Paris. We'll talk about this later. I have guests to attend to. The line went dead. I sat in my car for a long time, watching shadows dance across my windows, listening to music blast from my speakers, while strangers partied in my dream home. And slowly, as the night grew colder and darker, something inside me changed. They wanted to play games. Fine, game on. I sat in my car until my hands stopped shaking, watching the party through windows I'd cleaned myself. My phone buzzed. Another Instagram notification. Layla was live streaming from my kitchen. Welcome to the lake house, babes. Her voice chirped through my speakers. Tour time. Check out these gorgeous new countertops. I killed the app and dialed Mom again. This time she answered on the first ring. Paris, I told you. Open the door, Mom, now. You're being unreasonable. Her voice had that familiar patronising tone. We're entertaining important people. Your father's business associates are here. You wouldn't want to embarrass him, would you? A male voice in the background. Shanice, come quick. Derek's doing body shots off the island. My new granite island. Those important people are doing body shots off my kitchen counter, I said. The counter I'm still paying for. Oh, please, we both know you can afford it. You're always bragging about your big salary. Open the door. Not tonight. Mum's voice hardened. Go home, Paris. We'll discuss this when you're being more rational. I heard Layla again. Mom, tell her to stop ruining my party. This is so toxic. You heard your sister. Don't make this difficult. The line went dead again. I slammed my palm against the steering wheel, then jumped at a knock on my window. An older woman stood there, concern etched on her face. I cracked the window. You okay, honey? I'm Ella from next door. She gestured to the house on the right. Been watching you sit here a while. I'm fine, just family drama. You must be Paris. At my surprised look, she added, I've seen the Wagners here lots, though they told everyone. She trailed off, looking uncomfortable. Told everyone what? Ella shifted her weight. Well, they said this was their vacation home, that you'd moved to Seattle for work or something. They've been hosting parties all summer. My throat tightened. All summer? Oh, yes, every other weekend seems like. Your sister, Layla, right? She's been filming those internet videos. What do you call them? TikToks? TikToks, I corrected automatically, my mind racing. And she told people this was her house. Well, your parents did too. They had some fancy dinner party last month. Your father was showing off the renovation plans for the boathouse. The what? The renovation, oh dear. Ella's eyes widened. You didn't know about that either. My phone buzzed. A Facebook notification this time. Layla had tagged me in a post. Best birthday bash ever at my lake house. Sorry not sorry Paris. Maybe if you weren't such a workaholic you'd actually use this place. Blessed Hwatch lake house Hwatch my cabin. The comments were already rolling in. Girl, this place is everything. Can't wait for next weekend's retreat. Your parents are so generous letting you use their vacation home. I looked up at Ella, who was watching me with growing concern. Would you? I swallowed hard. Would you be willing to write down what you just told me? About what they've been saying? Of course, honey. And she hesitated. I have security cameras. They catch the driveway and dock. If you need proof of how often they're here. I'd appreciate that. Come inside. We'll get it sorted. She paused. And Paris? Last week I overheard your mother on the phone with someone about transferring the deed. Might want to check on that. My hands started shaking again, but for a different reason now. The fog of hurt was clearing, replaced by something colder, more focused. "Thank you, Ella. I think I will." As we walked to her house, another car pulled into my driveway. A guy in his 20s stumbled out, carrying cases of beer. "Yo!" he shouted toward my cabin. "Derek's here. Let's get this party started." The front door opened, spilling light and music across the lawn. Layla appeared, squealing. "Finally! Did you bring the stuff?" "You know it, babe. Your parents are cool with us staying all week, right?" "Duh. It's basically my place now. Paris never uses it anyway." I stopped walking. Ella touched my arm gently. "You okay?" I watched my sister help Derek carry beer into my house, watch strangers dance behind my windows, watch my parents play host with my property. 3 years of savings, countless overtime hours, all my dreams of family togetherness, just another resource for them to exploit. "No," I said quietly, "I'm not okay, but I will be." I pulled out my phone and opened my contacts. Time to call my lawyer. Monday morning, I walked into my father's office unannounced. His secretary tried to stop me, but I pushed past her. Dad looked up from his computer, frowning. "Paris, I'm in a meeting." "No, you're playing solitaire. I can see your screen from here." He minimized the window, sighing. "What's so urgent it couldn't wait?" "The boathouse renovations. Want to tell me about those?" Colour drained from his face. "Who told you?" "Does it matter? You're planning construction on my property without my knowledge. That's illegal, Dad." "Now, Princess," he raised his hands placatingly. "Don't be dramatic. You'll inherit it eventually anyway. We're just expediting some improvements." "Inherit?" I laughed. "I already own it. I bought it with my money." "And where did you learn to make that money?" He leaned back, smug. "Who paid for your education? Your first car? Everything you have is because of us. I paid back every penny of my student loans, and that used Civic was hardly a gift. You made me work at your warehouse every summer to pay it off." "The point is," he continued, as if I hadn't spoken, "family property is family property. Your mother and I have plans for that cabin, business plans, important ones." "Like what? More parties? More of Layla's influencer friends trashing my house? Your sister is building a brand, and I'm networking with potential investors. This benefits all of us." I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app. Funny thing about benefits, I just checked my mortgage statement. Someone tried to transfer the deed to Mum's LLC last month. Dad's face twitched. That was a misunderstanding. "Really? Because it looks like fraud to me. Good thing the bank flagged it." "Your mother was just trying to streamline things, for tax purposes." "Tax purposes?" I slammed my hands on his desk. "You tried to steal my house!" "Lower your voice," he hissed. "Someone will hear." "Good! Let them hear! Let them know how you and Mom—" "We're underwater, okay?" He snapped, voice breaking. "The business, my investments, all of it. We needed collateral for a loan." I stepped back, staring at him. "So you tried to steal my cabin?" "Borrow," he corrected weakly. "We would have fixed everything before—" "Before what? Before I noticed? Before you lost that too?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. My phone buzzed. An email notification from Gabriel Howard, the realtor I'd contacted yesterday. "Ms. Wagner, I've reviewed your situation. We have several interested buyers if you're ready to discuss options. The current market strongly favours sellers." I looked at my father, this man who taught me about integrity, about working hard, about family. He was still staring at his desk. "I'm selling it," I said quietly. His head snapped up. "You can't. Watch me. Your mother will be devastated. Layla's building her following there. My business contacts. Not my problem. Paris, please." He stood up, desperate now. "We can work something out. A rental agreement maybe. Or you could sign it over to us and—" "And what? Trust you'll do the right thing? Like you trusted me with a key to my own house?" "That was your mother's idea. She thought I'd give in, like always." I headed for the door. "Not this time." "Paris!" he called after me. "Don't do anything rash. Let's talk about this as a family." I turned back one last time. "We stopped being a family the moment you changed those locks." My phone buzzed again as I walked out. Gabriel Howard. "Available to meet this weekend?" I typed back, "Yes, the sooner the better." Another buzz, Mom this time. "Your father just called. You're being ridiculous. That cabin is a family investment." I blocked her number. Then Layla. "OMG, you're literally ruining everything. I have sponsors coming next week." Blocked. Final buzz. Gabriel again. "I should mention, given the recent attempted fraud, we should move quickly. I can have papers ready by Friday." I smiled for the first time in days. "Perfect. One question. Can we coordinate with local law enforcement for the sale? I might need help removing some unauthorized occupants." His response came quickly. "Already on it. Sheriff's Department is very familiar with handling adverse possession cases." I put my phone away and walked to my car. 3 years ago, I'd sat in this same parking lot, dreaming about the perfect family cabin. Now I was sitting here again, planning its sale. But this time, I wasn't dreaming about family. I was dreaming about justice. And justice, I was learning, could be just as satisfying as dreams. "You need cameras," Ariel said, sliding a coffee across my desk. "Like yesterday." I looked up from the email I was drafting to Gabriel. "Isn't that a bit much?" "Girl, they changed your locks. Nothing's too much anymore." She perched on my desk. "My brother sells security systems, high-end stuff, connects right to your phone. Want his number?" Before I could answer, my phone lit up with another Instagram notification. Layla doing yoga on my dock. Morning meditation at the family lake house. Chi blessed, ki namaste, ki lake house yoga. "Call him," I said. 2 days later, I watched through my phone as a cleaning service Mum had hired wandered through my house. They opened closets, cabinets, drawers, places they had no business being. "See?" Ariel peered over my shoulder at the feed. "Told you they're nosy." The cameras caught everything. Mum giving house tours to her friends. "Yes, we've had this place for years. Paris manages it for us, but it's a family property." Dad hosting poker nights. All my investment, of course. Paris just helped with the paperwork. Layla was the worst. She'd moved in half her wardrobe, converted my office into a content studio, and treated the place like her personal party pad. "Holy shit," Ariel whispered as we watched Layla's friend Derek lay out lines of white powder on my coffee table. "Is that—" "Evidence," I said, taking screenshots. "That's what that is." The next morning, I met Gabriel at a coffee shop downtown. He was younger than I expected, professional but with kind eyes. "I've reviewed everything," he said, spreading out papers. "The attempted deed transfer, the unauthorized occupancy, the documented damage." He paused the video I'd sent him. "And what appears to be illegal substances on the premises." "Can we use any of this?" "All of it, but—" He hesitated. "Are you sure you want to go this route? Family disputes can get ugly." "They're already ugly. I just want what's mine." He nodded. "Then let's talk strategy. The market's hot. We could list by next week. But first we need to handle the occupancy issue." "You mentioned the sheriff?" "Yes. Given the evidence of illegal activity, they're quite interested. We can coordinate the eviction with the sale announcement." My phone buzzed. Layla again. "Big news coming soon. Lake house renovations starting next month. Wait till you see what we're doing with the boathouse." I showed Gabriel the post. "How soon can we move?" "I have buyers ready to view this weekend, if we list Friday." "Perfect. They're planning some big party Saturday night. Let's do it then." He raised an eyebrow. "You want to list while they're having a party?" "Trust me, it's better this way." I pulled out my own folder. "Here's everything. Deed, mortgage statements, tax records, insurance, plus screenshots of their social media posts claiming ownership. And the security footage, uploading to your email now, including timestamps of when they changed the locks." Gabriel whistled softly. "You don't mess around." "They taught me that," I said. "Family lesson number 1, always keep receipts." Back at work, Ariel was watching the camera feed again. Your sister's planning something big, lots of people coming in and out. I checked the footage. Caterers, decorators, a DJ setting up equipment. Saturday's going to be interesting, I said. Want backup? I make a great angry friend. Thanks, but I need to do this myself. I watched Layla direct someone carrying cases of champagne. Besides, I won't be alone. I'll have Gabriel and the sheriff. The hot realtor? Ariel grinned. Girl, please tell me you're getting his number after this is over. Focus, this isn't about… Paris! Mum's name flashed on my phone. I'd unblocked her temporarily, waiting for this call. What's this I hear about a realtor? Oh, you noticed? Funny how information spreads when you're watching someone's house. This isn't funny. Cancel whatever you're planning. Your father's investors are not my problem, neither is Layla's party. Party? What party? I smiled. Check your daughter's social media. Seems she's planned quite the event for Saturday. Shame if anything interrupted it. Paris Wagner, don't you dare. Got to go, Mum. Meeting with my realtor. By the way, how's that boathouse renovation coming along? I hung up as she sputtered. Within minutes, my phone exploded with texts. Dad, let's discuss this rationally. Layla, you're ruining my life. Mum, your father's having chest pains from stress. I turned off my phone and looked at Ariel. Want to help me pick out an outfit for Saturday? Something black, she said. You're going to a funeral. No, I corrected her, watching another box of liquor being carried into my house through the security feed. I'm going to a wake for all their lies. Friday afternoon I called Layla. She answered on the first ring, suspicious. What do you want? Just checking about tomorrow night, I said sweetly. Wanted to make sure I wouldn't be interrupting anything. You're not invited, she snapped, and you can't stop us. Mum and Dad already said. I know, your party, your rules. I won't crash, promise. I examined my nails. Who's coming? She hesitated, then pried one out. Everyone, like literally everyone. 3 DJs, all my top followers, some major influencers flying in. Sounds expensive. Derek's handling most of it, his trust fund, you know. She couldn't resist bragging. We're announcing our new business venture. The cabin's going to be our content creation hub. Really? Tell me more. 20 minutes later, I had every detail. Guest list, timeline, even the hashtags they planned. Layla always did talk too much when she thought she was winning. I met Gabriel at the sheriff's office that afternoon. Everything's set, he said, handing me a folder. Sale listing goes live at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Sheriff Jones will meet us at the property at 9 p.m. Peak party time, I nodded. Perfect. You sure about this timing? He looked concerned. We could wait. No, they need to see it, all of them. I checked my phone. Another notification. Look. Layla's latest post showed workers setting up a massive tent by the lake. Tomorrow night, biggest announcement ever. Can't wait to show everyone our new business home. Blessed mune entrepreneur or a lake house life. Your sister seems confident, Gabriel said diplomatically. She's always been confident about spending other people's money. I handed him my phone, checked the comments. Mom had commented, So proud of my baby girl's new business venture. This lake house was the best investment we ever made. Gabriel whistled. That's bold, considering she has no legal claim. That's my mother, queen of alternative facts. My phone rang. Dad again. 5th time today. I let it go to voicemail. They're getting desperate, Gabriel observed. Good, they should be. Back home, I laid out my outfit for tomorrow. Black dress, red lipstick, heels that could kill. Ariel had called it my revenge formal look. My doorbell rang. A courier held out a thick envelope. Delivery from Shanice Wagner. Inside was a contract, hastily drawn up. They'd offered to buy the cabin from me, with a payment plan, of course. A post-it note in Mom's handwriting. Be reasonable. Family helps family. I took a picture and sent it to Gabriel. "Nice try," he texted back, "but too late. Buyers are locked in." Another text came through, Ella this time. "Your sister's friends are setting up cameras everywhere, telling neighbours they're filming some big reveal tomorrow." "Oh, there'll be a reveal all right," I replied. I spent that night watching the security feeds, Mum directing caterers, Dad glad-handing early arrivals, Layla practicing her spontaneous announcement speech in my bathroom mirror. "Can't believe she's really going to do this," Ariel said during our late-night strategy call. Believe it, she's been rehearsing that speech for hours, all about how she's manifested this opportunity. "With your house. Not for long." Morning came. The listing went live at 8 a.m. sharp. Luxury lake cabin, price to sell, immediate availability. By noon, my phone was a war zone. Mum: "Take down that listing right now." Dad: "You're making a huge mistake." Layla: "I hate you, I hate you, I hate you." I blocked them all again and texted Gabriel. "Ready? Buyers are excited, papers drawn up, sheriff's on board. You sure about this?" I watched through the cameras as decorators hung fairy lights across my deck, caterers set up stations in my kitchen. Derek arranged bottles at my wet bar. Layla stood in my living room, practicing her speech again. "We're so blessed to announce our new business venture, Lake House Studios, thanks to my amazing family for providing this gorgeous space." "I'm sure," I texted back, "time to end this story." "See you at 8:30, Gabriel replied. "Wear something fierce." I looked at my black dress, thought about all the times I'd given in, backed down, played nice. Not tonight. Tonight I was wearing karma, and karma, like revenge, looks best in black. Music thumped across the lake as Gabriel and I pulled up behind the sheriff's SUV. The party was in full swing. Cars lined the driveway, people spilled onto the lawn, and my deck was packed with dancers. Through the windows I could see Layla holding court in the living room, surrounded by her influencer friends and their phones. "Ready?" Gabriel asked, holding up the "for sale" sign. I nodded. Sheriff Jones approached, clipboard in hand. "Ms. Wagner, we've confirmed the property ownership. Ready when you are." We walked up the path together, past groups of partiers who barely noticed us. The music was deafening now. Through the front windows, I saw Mum directing caterers, Dad chatting with men in expensive suits. Sheriff Jones knocked firmly. No response. He knocked louder. Finally, Mum opened the door, wineglass in hand. "Yes, we're in the middle of a private event." Her voice died when she saw me. The wineglass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the porch. "Paris?" Her eyes darted between me, Gabriel, and the sheriff. "What is this?" "Property reclamation," Sheriff Jones said officially. "I have papers here." "No." Mum tried to close the door. The sheriff blocked it with his foot. "Mum, I need you to gather everyone and—" "Layla!" Mum screamed over her shoulder. "Norman!" The music cut abruptly. People turned to stare. Dad emerged from his group, face reddening when he saw us. "Paris, don't do this," he started. "Already done." Gabriel stepped forward, hammering the "for sale" sign into the front lawn. Camera phones swiveled to record. Layla pushed through the crowd, Derek trailing behind her. "What the hell? You can't just—" "Actually, I can." I held up my folder. Deed, mortgage and proof of ownership, plus documentation of unauthorized occupancy, property damage and— I smiled at Derek. "Various illegal activities." "You were spying on us," Layla shrieked. "No, I was monitoring my property. Big difference." "But—" Derek looked confused. "This isn't your family's vacation house?" "Nope, I bought it, alone. They just borrowed it, without asking." Mum stepped forward, voice honey-sweet. "Sweetheart, let's discuss this privately. You're embarrassing yourself." "Really?" I pulled out my phone. "More embarrassing than this?" I played the security footage. Mum's voice filled the sudden silence. "Paris always gives in. She's desperate for our approval. We'll have the deed transferred before she notices." Layla lunged for my phone. Sheriff Jones stepped between us. Miss, I wouldn't. This is my house, she screamed. We announced it. Everyone knows. Everyone knows what you told them, I corrected, but lies don't hold up in court. Court? Dad pushed forward. Now wait just a minute. The property has been sold, Gabriel announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. New owners take possession Monday. All current occupants need to vacate immediately. Sold? Mum swayed slightly. You can't. I can and I did. Sheriff Jones will supervise the evacuation. Evacuation? Layla's voice rose higher. But my followers, my announcement, Derek's investment was never yours to take. I turned to the crowd. Party's over, everyone. Property's being seized. People began grabbing their things, muttering and filming. Derek backed away from Layla. You said this was your place, he accused. You said your parents. She said a lot of things, I cut in. None of them true. Mum grabbed my arm. Paris, please, we can work this out. We're family. Family? I jerked away. Family doesn't change locks. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't... The rest was cut off by the splash of cold liquid hitting my face. Layla stood there, empty champagne bottle in hand, mascara running. I hate you, she spat. You've ruined everything. Sheriff Jones stepped forward. Miss, that's assault. Would you like to press charges? I wiped my face, feeling the champagne soak into my dress. The dress I'd bought specially for this moment. The perfect revenge outfit now ruined, like everything else they touched. No, I said quietly. No charges. Just get them out. You heard her, the sheriff announced. Everyone out, now! As people filed past, I heard the whispers. Can't believe they lied about owning it. Did you get all that on video? Influencers, man, it's all fake. Gabriel touched my arm. You okay? I watched my family being escorted out of my house. Mum crying, Dad stone-faced, Layla screaming into her phone. 3 years of dreams, destroyed by their greed. No, I said honestly, but I will be. The music had stopped. The party was over. And finally, the house was mine again. The aftermath was worse than the party. Empty bottles everywhere, cigarette burns on my furniture, and something sticky coating every surface. Mum sat on the porch steps, refusing to leave while Dad packed their things. You've destroyed this family, she said, as I walked past with a trash bag. Pretty sure you did that when you tried to steal my house. We weren't stealing, we were protecting our investment. What investment? I spun around. Show me one receipt, one payment, $1 you put into this place. She looked away. Inside, Layla was shoving clothes into bags, still ranting into her phone. My followers are devastated. We had sponsorship deals lined up, brand partnerships. Not your house, not your deals. I started collecting empty champagne bottles. Should have thought about that before lying to everyone. I wasn't lying, I was manifesting. Is that what we're calling fraud now? Derek appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. Layla, my dad's lawyer called. About the business loan. Not now, she hissed. I raised an eyebrow. Business loan? Derek shifted. We took out a start-up loan for Lake House Studios, using this property as collateral. A loan? I turned to Layla. Using my house? Mum said it was fine. She said once the deed transferred. The deed that you tried to steal? I laughed bitterly. Hope you got a good lawyer, because fraud charges... Fraud. Dad emerged from upstairs. No one's pressing charges. We'll handle this as a family. Family? I pulled out my phone, played another security clip. His voice filled the room. Paris is naive. She'll sign anything we put in front of her. Always has. He paled. Where did you... Cameras, Dad, everywhere. Got some great footage of your poker nights too. Wonder what those business associates would think. Enough, Mum stood in the doorway. You're being cruel. Cruel? I gestured around the trashed house. Like changing my locks, like trying to steal my deed, like letting your daughter take out fraudulent loans. We were desperate, she shouted. Your father's business is failing. Layla needed a fresh start. We thought, You thought I'd cave, like always. I faced them all. But I'm done being your backup plan. Sheriff Jones stepped in. Time's up, everyone out. But my things, Layla protested. Should have thought about that before the champagne assault. I pointed to the door. Out! They filed past me one by one. Mum tried to hug me. I stepped back. Dad couldn't meet my eyes. Layla stormed past, Derek trailing awkwardly behind. Gabriel appeared with papers. Ready to sign? Now? Mum spun around. Here? Perfect timing, I said, taking the pen. Witnesses everywhere. Paris, please. Dad tried one last time. Think about your sister's future. I am. I signed with a flourish. I'm teaching her actions have consequences. You'll regret this, Mum said quietly. When you're alone. I'd rather be alone than be your ATM. Layla made one final scene, throwing herself onto the couch. I can't leave. This is my home. Miss, Sheriff Jones sighed, don't make me remove you physically. She got up, mascara streaking her face. I'll never forgive you. Funny, I said, watching her go. That's exactly how I feel. The door closed behind them. Through the window, I watched them load their cars. Mum crying dramatically, Dad comforting her, Layla still filming everything. Well, Gabriel said beside me, that was intense. Worth it. I handed him the signed papers. When can the new owners move in? Monday. He hesitated. You sure about this? We could still... I'm sure. I watched my family's cars pull away. Some things you can't fix. My phone buzzed, messages flooding in. Mum. You've broken my heart. I hope you're happy. Dad. Your mother's inconsolable. Call us when you've calmed down. Layla. My followers are devastated. You've ruined my brand. And then, surprisingly, from Derek. Sorry about everything. Didn't know it was your house. Lawyer says I can sue Layla for misrepresentation. I blocked Mum and Dad, left Layla unread. Replied to Derek. Good luck with that. Gabriel touched my arm. Need help cleaning up? I looked around the trashed house, my dream home, destroyed by the people I'd wanted to share it with. No, I said. The cleaning service comes tomorrow. I just want to... Want to what? I walked to the deck, looked out over the lake. The same view that had made me fall in love with this place. But now, instead of seeing family gatherings and shared memories, I saw something else. Freedom. I want to watch the sunset, I said, one last time, without their shadows hanging over me. He nodded, understanding. Want company? I thought about it, about being alone, about choosing who to let in. Yes, I said. I think I do. The cleaning crew had just finished when Ella stopped by. She surveyed the spotless living room, now empty of my family's chaos. Quite a show last night, she said, handing me a coffee. Whole neighbourhood's talking about it. I bet they are. I sank into my armchair, the only piece of furniture I was keeping. Seen any of them today? Your sister drove by twice, filming. Your mother's been calling everyone, playing victim. Ella sat across from me. But that's not why I'm here. She pulled out her phone, showed me a social media post. Layla, tear-streaked but defiant, swipe up to support my legal fund, fighting family betrayal and toxic property theft, and justice for Layla. Theft, I laughed. That's rich. Keep scrolling. Mum had shared it. My daughter Paris has broken our hearts after all we invested in that cabin. Invested? A new voice cut in. Gabriel stood in the doorway holding papers. Show me those receipts. I smiled. Since that sunset talk, he'd become more than just my realtor, more like an ally. Final walkthrough? I asked. And something else. He laid out documents. The buyers found these in the boathouse. Loan applications. In your name. My stomach dropped. What? Forged signatures. Your parents tried to take out equity loans. Multiple times. Ella whistled. That's serious fraud. Already sent copies to your lawyer. Gabriel sat beside me. Want to press charges? I stared at my mother's familiar handwriting, my father's clumsy forgeries. More betrayal, even now. My phone buzzed. Dad, your mother's in the hospital. Stress attack. Hope you're happy. Then Mum, doctors say my blood pressure's dangerously high. This is your fault. Finally, Layla, Mum's sick because of you, but my followers are supporting me through this trauma, already raised $5,000 for legal fees. I blocked them all, permanently this time. No charges, I decided. Let them live with what they've done. They're still lying about you, Ella pointed out. Let them. Truth comes out eventually. Gabriel gathered the papers. Speaking of truth, the buyers found something else. Old property records. He spread out yellow documents. My eyes caught familiar names. This cabin, he explained, was originally owned by your maternal grandmother. She left it to you specifically in her will. Your parents contested it, lost, then sold it before you turned 18. They... what? The cabin was always meant to be yours. They sold your inheritance, then watched you buy it back with your own money. The truth hit like a physical blow. All those overtime hours, the savings, the loans, buying back what should have been mine all along. That's why they wanted it so badly, I whispered. They thought they could take it twice. A car pulled up outside, the buyers right on schedule. Through the window I watched them emerge, a young couple excited, taking pictures, building their own dreams. Ready? Gabriel asked softly. I took one last look around. At the lake view I'd fallen in love with, at the spaces I'd hoped to fill with family memories. Actually, I pulled out my phone, opened my blocked messages, typed quickly, Mum, hope you feel better. The cabin's sold. Don't contact me again. Dad, found Grandma's will. Now I know why you pushed so hard. Goodbye. Layla, keep the donation money. You'll need it for lawyer fees when those loan companies come calling. P.S. I'm keeping all the security footage just in case. That's it? Ella asked. No big confrontation? They'd love that. More drama for their social media. I stood up, grabbed my bag. But sometimes the best revenge is just walking away. Gabriel opened the door. The buyers waited eagerly on the porch, clutching their keys. Welcome home, I said, stepping past them. Aren't you sad to sell? The wife asked. It's such a beautiful place. I thought about my family, about betrayal, about the peace I felt right now, walking away from their chaos. No, I said honestly. Sometimes beautiful things aren't meant for us. Sometimes they're just stops along the way. I walked to my car, where Gabriel waited. Ella hugged me goodbye. What now? She asked. I looked at the cabin one last time, not with sadness or anger, but with something lighter, freedom maybe, or hope. Now, I smiled. I build something new, something that's just mine. I got in my car, Gabriel beside me, and drove away from the dream I'd outgrown. Behind me, my family's lies crumbled like sandcastles in the tide. Ahead lay something better, my own truth, my own path, my own happy ending. No family drama required.
You're always so dramatic, Mom. I said I'd pay it. I just need a few days. Paris's lips puckered like she'd just sucked on a lemon. Few days? Olive, the invoice is already late. They could kick us out. They're not going to kick you out of a $6,000 a month luxury care facility over one late payment, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. Greg didn't look up from his recliner. It's not about the money. It's about responsibility. You made a commitment. I bit the inside of my cheek. The smell of lavender air freshener was suffocating. Every Sunday, same routine. I brought groceries, paid bills, listened to two people who hadn't worked in over a decade, guilt-tripped me like I was the family disappointment. I'm not backing out of anything, I said. My car needed new brakes and the hospital cut overtime again. I'm managing. Paris sighed like she was auditioning for a soap opera. I just don't understand how your brother can make things work so easily. He never complains. I laughed, sharp and too loud. Yeah, well, Maybe Dawson's life is just easier. Greg finally looked at me. That's a low blow. I stood up. You know what? I'll transfer the money tonight. Don't worry. Wouldn't want to ruin your Sunday. I grabbed my tote bag and headed for the door. Paris called after me. You used to be so sweet. What happened to you? I didn't answer. I didn't trust what would come out. My name's Olive. I'm 35, single, and I work in healthcare administration. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills, barely. Especially when you're funneling $6,000 a month into your parents' care because they don't trust the state and deserve comfort in their final years. Dawson? He's 3 years older, lives in a condo downtown, drives a Tesla, and hasn't paid a dime toward our parents since Grandpa died. They say he inherited a modest sum, enough to get him on his feet. That was 10 years ago. Apparently, his feet are made of gold. After I left my parents' house, I drove straight to Ariel's. She opened the door before I even knocked. Let me guess, she said. They called you selfish again? Bingo. She handed me a glass of wine before I even sat down. You know this isn't normal, right? Like, you're not a bad daughter for needing a moment to breathe. They're old, Ariel. They're manipulative. I didn't argue. I just sipped the wine and stared at her cat, who was licking his butt in the corner like he didn't have a care in the world. Ariel sat beside me. I've been thinking about Dawson. I groaned. Please don't. No, listen. Remember Soleil, that junior accountant at your parents' place? Yeah? She mentioned something weird when I saw her last week. Said she saw a document labeled Pierce Family Trust. I blinked. What? Yeah, she didn't think much of it, just remembered the name. Said it was buried in some old billing folder. I sat up straighter. That doesn't make sense. There's no family trust. Ariel raised an eyebrow. Isn't there? I shook my head. No. Grandpa left Dawson a small inheritance. That's it. Olive, you've been paying $6,000 a month for years. Dawson's living like a tech bro with no job. Don't you think something's off? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My stomach twisted. After I got home that night, I stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the refrigerator. My apartment was small, clean, quiet. No framed family photos, no heirlooms. Just me and the hum of the fridge. I opened my laptop and pulled up my banking app. The last transfer, $6,000. Before that, $6,000. Month after month. My savings account was a joke. My emergency fund was a punchline. I closed the laptop and paced. Ariel was always suspicious, always digging, but Soleil, she didn't even know me. Why would she lie? I tried to sleep, but my brain wouldn't shut up. I kept seeing Dawson's smug face at Grandpa's funeral, giving that speech like he was the grieving golden boy. I remembered how he flew to Italy afterward to heal, while I took a second job to help cover the funeral costs. I got out of bed and made tea I didn't drink. I opened the drawer where I kept old family documents, birth certificates, my college transcripts, a faded photo of me and Grandpa fishing, no trust documents, no clues. I stared at the wall clock, 2:17 a.m. What if Ariel was right? What if Soleil saw something real? What if my whole life, every sacrifice, every skipped vacation, every sleepless night was built on a lie? I didn't sleep at all. The guest room smelled like dust and old perfume. I hadn't been in there since Dad converted it into his office, which was just a fancy way of saying he shoved a desk in the corner and filled it with junk mail and broken pens. I'm just grabbing some photo albums, I called out to Paris from the hallway. Top shelf in the linen closet, she replied, her voice floating from the kitchen. Be careful with the ones from Italy. Dawson loved those. Of course he did. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. The air was thick. The desk was a mess. Papers, envelopes, a mug with dried coffee crusted at the bottom. I pulled open the top drawer. Receipts, a checkbook, some loose stamps. Nothing interesting. Second drawer, Old tax returns, some labeled, some not. One manila folder was marked Salazar Estate. My heart thudded. I opened it. Inside were copies of Grandpa's will, a few legal letters, and a stapled set of papers titled Pierce Family Trust, Annual Disbursements. I froze. The pages were thick, printed on high-quality paper. My hands shook as I flipped through them. Line after line of payments, $16,500 here, $18,200 there, all under Dawson's name. Monthly distributions, every month, for years. I did the math in my head and felt sick. Then I saw it. A note in my mother's handwriting, scribbled in blue ink at the top of one page, destroy after review. I stared at the words like they might change if I blinked. They didn't. Olive? Paris's voice was closer now. I shoved the folder under my sweater and slammed the drawer closed. Found the albums, I called back, grabbing a dusty photo book from the shelf. She poked her head in. Oh, good. Did you see the one from Dawson's high school graduation? I forced a smile. Yeah. He looked so proud. She beamed. He's always been special. I nodded and walked out with the photo album in one hand and a burning secret pressed against my stomach. Back in my car, I locked the doors and pulled out the folder. I photographed every page with my phone, then slid the originals into my tote bag. I didn't know what I was going to do with them yet, but I knew I couldn't leave them behind. I drove straight to Ariel's. She opened the door in pajamas and blinked at me. Jesus, you look like you saw a ghost. Worse, I said, walking past her. I saw the truth. We sat on her couch while I laid out the papers. She scanned the first page, then the second. Her eyes widened. Holy shit, she whispered. Olive, this is huge. I know. They've been giving him this much every month? That's almost $200,000 a year. Yep. And you've been paying for everything. I nodded. My throat felt tight. She looked up at me. What are you going to do? I don't know. Ariel picked up one of the pages. You need to make copies, hide them in different places, and you need to talk to a lawyer. I shook my head. Not yet. I need more. She hesitated. You're not going back there, are you? I have to. The next morning, I called out sick from work and went back to my parents' house. Paris was out running errands. Dad was asleep in his chair, snoring with his mouth open. I went straight for the desk again. This time, I checked the bottom drawer. More folders, some labeled, some not. One was dated just last month. I opened it. Inside was a printed email chain, subject line, trust disbursement, bonus approval. The last message was from my dad to someone named M. Reynolds. It read, approved. Dawson has been under a lot of stress lately. Please process the $10,000 bonus as discussed. Signed with his full name. I took out my phone and snapped a picture. I was about to close the drawer when I heard the front door open. Olive? Paris's voice. I shoved the folder back and shut the drawer. In here, I called, grabbing the photo album I'd left behind. She walked in holding a grocery bag. Oh, you're still here. Yeah, forgot this. She looked at me for a second too long. You didn't go through the desk, did you? My stomach dropped. What? The desk, she said lightly. Just asking. I smiled. No. Why? Her eyes narrowed just a little. No reason. I left 5 minutes later, heart pounding. That night, I went through the photos on my phone again. The trust statements, the email, my mother's handwriting, destroy after review. I remembered all the times I'd asked if Dawson could help, and they'd said he was barely getting by. The time I skipped grad school because we just don't have the funds. The time Dawson posted a picture of himself on a yacht in Santorini. I sent Ariel a text. I need a fireproof box and a plan. She replied instantly, I'm already Googling lawyers. I stared at the screen, then at the folder on my table. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was ready. I was in the middle of scanning the last batch of documents when my phone rang. Paris. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. I answered, trying to sound normal. Hey, did you go snooping around in the guest room yesterday? My chest tightened. What? The desk. Were you looking through the drawers? I forced a laugh. No, I grabbed the photo album and left. Why? There was a pause. Some folders were out of place. Maybe Dad moved them? Another pause. Maybe. She hung up without saying goodbye. I stared at my phone. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline. I texted Ariel. They know someone was in the desk. I lied. I think she half believes me. Come over now, she replied. 20 minutes later, I was sitting on Ariel's floor, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. She picked up one of the scanned documents and shook her head. This one. Dawson got $22,000 in July. That's the same month you paid for their new hospital bed. I nodded. I remember because I put it on my credit card. Ariel looked up. You need to talk to someone legally. This is fraud, Olive. Not if they're the trustees. They can technically do whatever they want with the trust. But lying to you? Manipulating you into paying everything while they funnel money to Dawson? That's not just shady. That's evil. I didn't respond. I was too busy remembering things I'd tried to forget. Like the time I got accepted into a grad program in Chicago. I was 24, excited, ready to go. I'd asked my parents if they could help with tuition. They said no. Money's too tight, Greg had said. We're still dealing with the estate stuff. That same year, Dawson took a 6-month sabbatical to find himself in Europe. He posted pictures from Paris, Rome, Santorini. I thought maybe he'd saved up. Maybe he was just lucky. He wasn't lucky. He was funded. I picked up a folder and flipped through it again. That email from my dad authorizing the $10,000 bonus for Dawson just last month. Ariel leaned back against the couch. They've been doing this for years. I nodded. You've been paying for everything. Rent, food, medical bills, nursing home fees, and they just let you. They didn't just let me, I said. They expected it. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Paris. We need to talk. Come by tomorrow. I showed Ariel. She's on to you. Let her be. Ariel stood up. You need more proof, something from outside the family, something they can't spin. I looked at her. Like what? She grinned. Like the trust firm. Call them. Pretend to be someone else. Ask questions. Get them to confirm your parents are managing it. That's risky. So is giving them another chance to cover their tracks. The next morning, I called the number listed on one of the trust documents. I put on my best fake smile voice. Hi, this is Rachel from Martin & Jensen Law. I'm assisting with a client's estate review. I just have a quick question about the Pierce Family Trust. The man on the other end didn't even hesitate. Sure, what do you need? Just confirming, who are the current trustees on file? Looks like Greg and Paris, both listed as co-trustees. And the beneficiary? Only one, Dawson. I scribbled it down. Perfect, thank you. Need anything else? Nope, that's all. Appreciate it. I hung up and stared at the pad of paper in front of me. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a setup. Later that week, I visited the nursing home to drop off some paperwork. I'd barely stepped into the lobby when someone called my name. Olive? I turned. Lawrence, the facility's finance manager, was walking toward me holding a clipboard. Got a minute? Sure. We stepped into his office. He closed the door. I was reviewing some of your parents' billing records, he said. Something odd came up. I kept my face neutral. Odd how? There have been some overrides on their account, waivers, adjustments, all authorized by your father, but he's not listed as the financial guarantor. You are. My heart thudded. What kind of overrides? Things like waived late fees, extended payment terms, even a temporary rate reduction last year. I blinked. I didn't know about any of that. He frowned. That's the thing. You should have. I hesitated. If I brought in some documents, things that might explain what's been going on, would you look at them? Lawrence leaned forward. If it affects our billing or violates any agreements, yes, absolutely. I'll bring them in. 3 days. He nodded. I'll be here. As I left the office, I spotted Soleil near the front desk. She gave me a quick smile and a nod. I walked past her, holding my bag a little tighter. 3 days. I was going to burn it all down. Pierce Family Trust, this is Jessica. How may I help you? Hi, I'm calling on behalf of a client. I just need to confirm a few details regarding a trust account. I was sitting in my car outside a strip mall, pretending to be someone named Rachel again. I'd practiced the script with Ariel the night before. Jessica didn't ask for credentials. Sure, what's the trust name? Pierce Family Trust. Okay, give me a second. Found it. What would you like to know? Just confirming trustees and beneficiaries. Trustees are Greg and Paris. Beneficiary is Dawson. Is there a secondary beneficiary? Nope, just Dawson. Got it. And are the trustees active? Yes. Both are managing the account and authorizing disbursements. Perfect. Thank you. I hung up and stared at the steering wheel. It wasn't just a lie of omission. It wasn't something they forgot to tell me. They were managing the trust. They'd been signing off on every payout, every bonus, every luxury Dawson enjoyed while I was maxing out credit cards to keep them comfortable. I drove straight to the nursing home. I'd called ahead. Lawrence was expecting me. He met me in the lobby, his usual friendly smile replaced with something more serious. Let's go to my office. Soleil was already inside, seated at the small conference table. She gave me a tight smile. I pulled the folder from my bag and placed it on the table. This is what I found. Trust documents, emails, billing records. I think you'll want to see this. Lawrence opened the folder and started flipping through. His eyebrows lifted as he read. Soleil leaned in, scanning the pages with him. This is a lot, Lawrence said. These are original trust statements. Copies of the originals. I found them in my parents' house. He turned to the email with the $10,000 bonus authorization. This was last month? Yes. While I was still paying their bills. Soleil pointed to a billing override form. This signature? This is Paris's? I nodded. She's not listed as guarantor, right? No, Lawrence said. You are. He pushed back from the table and folded his arms. This changes things. Soleil looked at him. Should we bring in legal? Lawrence nodded. Definitely. I stayed quiet as they made a few calls. 15 minutes later, Lawrence came back into the room. Our legal team is reviewing everything now. Based on what you've provided, we can put a hold on your payment obligations while we investigate. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like days. He continued, if your parents are the trustees and have been managing the trust, then technically they're the financial guardians. And if they've been misrepresenting that to us, we'll be pursuing back payment from them, or from Dawson if he's the primary beneficiary. Soleil added, and those forged signatures? That's serious. I nodded, gripping the edge of the table. I just want the truth out. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. Lawrence gave me a long look. Sometimes the truth hurts anyway. I left the folder with them. As I walked out of the office, my phone buzzed. Mom. What have you done? Then another. You ungrateful little girl. You have no idea what you've started. I didn't reply. I just turned off my phone and kept walking. By the time I got home, Ariel was waiting on my porch with Thai food and a bottle of wine. I didn't even say hello. I just dropped into the chair next to her and let my head fall back. Well? She asked. They're investigating. I'm off the hook for payments for now. She handed me a spring roll. And your mom? Lost her mind. called me ungrateful. Ariel snorted. Classic. I took a bite and stared at the sky. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? She didn't answer right away. Then, I think you've been doing the right thing your whole life. This is just you finally doing the smart thing. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Later that night, I opened my laptop and started organizing everything into folders, scans, emails, recordings. I labeled them by date. I added notes. I even backed everything up to a flash drive and hid it in my sock drawer. At the bottom of the main folder, I added a new document. Summary of evidence, Olive. I started typing. Trust fund distributions, $200K year to Dawson. Trustees, Greg and Paris. No mention of Olive in any legal paperwork. Billing overrides signed by Paris, not legal guarantor. Olive paid $6K month for 4 years, $288,000. I saved the file and closed the laptop. I looked around my apartment, small, quiet, paid for with my own damn money. Let them scream, let them rage. I had receipts. I was folding laundry when my phone buzzed. Paris. I let it ring. Then Greg. Then a text. Come by now. It's urgent. Dawson's here. I stared at the screen. My stomach sank. I called Ariel. Don't go alone, she said immediately. I have to. She sighed. Record everything. I will. I grabbed my tote bag, slid my phone into my bra, and hit record before I even turned the key in the ignition. Their house looked the same, too clean, too quiet. I knocked once and walked in. Dawson was sitting on the couch, legs crossed, sipping something from a crystal glass. Greg stood behind him, arms folded. Paris sat perched on the armrest, eyes red. Well, well, Dawson said. The prodigal daughter returns. I ignored him and turned to Greg. What's the emergency? Greg didn't waste time. We know what you did, Paris sniffled. How could you, Olive? After everything we've done for you. I laughed. Everything you've done for me? You mean the lies, the manipulation, the $6,000 a month I've been paying while you funneled trust money to Dawson? Dawson stood up slowly. You don't want to stir up old dirt, Liv. You've got enough on your plate. I turned to him. Is that a threat? He smiled. It's a suggestion. Greg stepped forward. You've always been emotional. But this is reckless. You forged signatures, I said. You let me go into debt while you handed him bonuses. Paris waved her hand. Dawson needed help. He was struggling. I stared at her. He was in Santorini. He was finding himself, she snapped. Dawson rolled his eyes. You've always had a martyr complex. You think suffering makes you noble? I clenched my jaw. No, I think stealing makes you a thief. Greg slammed his hand on the table. Enough. The room went silent. He looked at me, eyes cold. You want to burn this family down? Fine. But don't come crawling back when you realize what you've lost. I never had anything to lose, I said. You made sure of that. Paris started crying. We did what we thought was best. For who? I asked. For me? Or for your golden boy? Dawson stepped closer. You're not going to win, Olive. You think some documents and a sob story make you righteous? You're just bitter. I met his gaze. No, I'm done. I turned and walked out. Outside, I sat in my car, shaking. I stopped the recording and saved it. My phone buzzed. Ariel. Well? She asked. I got it all. Good, come over. I drove straight to her place. She opened the door, took one look at me, and pulled me into a hug. I feel like I'm going to throw up, I said. You won't. You're stronger than they are. I sat on the couch and pulled out my laptop. I need to finish the file. She sat next to me as I opened the folder labeled Master Evidence. We went through everything, Scanned documents, emails, trust statements, billing records, the recording from today. I added the new audio file. Ariel leaned over. You should include the email from the lawyer's office, the one confirming your parents are the trustees. I nodded and dragged it in. Then I opened a blank document and started typing. Subject: Financial misconduct. Pierce Family Trust. 2. Lawrence Allen, Nursing Home Finance Manager. Attached are documents and recordings that provide evidence of financial misconduct by Greg and Paris, current trustees of the Pierce Family Trust. Summary: Olive has been paying $6,000 a month for 4 years and $288,000. Trust fund pays Dawson Eastall's $200K year. Trustees are Greg and Paris. Billing overrides signed by Paris, not legal guarantor. Forged documents and misrepresentation. Requesting official audit and reassignment of financial responsibility. I saved it as a PDF and attached everything. Ariel looked at me. Ready? I hovered over the send button. Then I clicked it. It was done. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. Ariel nudged my arm. I'd love to see their faces when they realize the nurse isn't the only one watching them. I smiled for the first time that day. So would I. Lawrence greeted me at the front entrance with a nod. Come on back. We've got a room set up. I followed him down the hallway, past quiet rooms and nurses pushing carts. Soleil was already inside the conference room, flipping through a legal pad. She looked up and gave me a nervous smile. You brought the documents? I pulled the thick folder from my tote and placed it on the table. Everything's in here. Originals, scans, emails, recordings. Lawrence opened the folder and started sorting through the pages. His eyes moved fast, his jaw tightening the farther he went. Soleil leaned in, pointing at the trust statements. These match the overrides we found in the system, she said. Same months, same amounts. Lawrence held up the email from my dad, approving the $10,000 bonus. This alone is enough to trigger a full audit. He flipped to the waiver forms with Paris's signature. And this, she's not the guarantor. You are. I nodded. They've been signing off on everything behind my back. I didn't even know the trust existed until last month. Soleil looked at Lawrence. Legal's gonna want to see this ASAP. He nodded. Already looped them in. I'll send this over today. He looked at me. Olive, based on what you've shown us, we're officially suspending your payment obligation pending the outcome of our investigation. I blinked. Wait, so I don't have to pay anything right now? No, and if legal confirms what we think they will, we'll be pursuing back payment from the actual financial trustee. That would be your brother, as the sole beneficiary of the trust. Soleil added, there may also be legal consequences for the forged documents. That's outside our scope, but it's serious. I sat back in my chair and exhaled. Lawrence closed the folder and pushed it toward me. Keep a copy of everything. We'll take care of the rest from here. I nodded and stood. Thank you, both of you. Soleil smiled. You did the right thing. I barely made it to my car before my phone rang. Mom. I let it ring. Then a text came through. What have you done? Then another. You ungrateful, spiteful girl. You're tearing this family apart. And then Greg. You've made a huge mistake. I stared at the screen, then turned it off and dropped it in my bag. I drove to Ariel's. She was already waiting on the porch with 2 iced coffees and a look that said, tell me everything. They're launching an investigation, I said, setting my bag down. I'm off the hook for payments. Dawson's about to get hit with the bill. Ariel grinned. Oh, I bet he's gonna love that. I laughed, but it came out shaky. Paris is melting down. She called me ungrateful. She's always been ungrateful that you didn't roll over and play dead. I sat next to her and took a sip of coffee. I'm not sure how this ends. Ariel leaned back. It ends when you stop paying for their lies. That night, I opened my laptop and checked my email. Lawrence had already sent confirmation. Your financial obligation has been suspended pending the outcome of our internal investigation. Legal counsel has been notified. I forwarded it to myself, printed a copy, and slid it into the folder marked Final Evidence. I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed again. Voicemail from Paris. I played it on speaker. You don't understand what you've done. Dawson has always needed more support. He's sensitive. You've always been strong, Olive. You've always managed. Why can't you just be grateful for once in your life? I stood there, toothbrush in hand, staring at the mirror. Grateful. For what? The next morning, I got another call, this time from the nursing home's legal department. They were moving forward with a formal audit of the trust. Dawson would be contacted directly regarding financial responsibility. I didn't even smile. I just nodded and said, "Thank you." 2 hours later, Paris called again. I answered. "Olive," she said, her voice trembling. "We need to talk, face to face." "I don't think that's a good idea. Please, just come to the house." I hesitated. "Dawson will be here, your father too." I hung up without answering. Then I texted Ariel. "They want a meeting, I'm going." She replied instantly, "Record everything, and wear something sharp. You're not the victim anymore." I stared at that message for a long time before replying, "Copy that." I was ready for the final act. The living room was too quiet. Paris sat on the edge of the couch, eyes puffy, hands clasped like she was praying. Greg stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, jaw tense. Dawson lounged in the armchair like he was bored at a dentist's office. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. "You said you wanted to talk?" Paris stood up. "Olive, please, this has gone too far." Greg didn't move. "You've embarrassed this family." Dawson smirked. "Congratulations, you got your moment." I stayed standing. "You mean the moment where I stopped being your personal ATM?" Paris flinched. "We didn't ask for that." "You didn't have to. You just let me keep paying while you handed Dawson hundreds of thousands of dollars." Greg stepped forward. "You don't understand how trusts work." "I understand enough," I cut in. "I understand that you've been managing it, that you forged signatures, that you lied." Paris's voice cracked. "We didn't lie. We just didn't tell you everything." I laughed. "That's called lying, Mom." Dawson stood up, arms spread. "So what's the plan, Liv? You blow everything up, and then what? You get a medal?" "No, I get my life back." He scoffed. "You've always been bitter, always jealous." "Jealous?" I snapped. "Of what? Your vacations? Your Tesla? Your trust fund you pretended didn't exist while I skipped meals to pay for their nursing home?" Paris's voice rose. "You think this makes you better than us?" "No," I said, stepping closer. "I think this makes me free." Greg's face turned red. "You think exposing this makes you a hero? You've destroyed this family." "This family destroyed itself," I said. "I just turned on the lights." Paris started crying. "Dawson needed it more. He was struggling. You were always the strong one. You always figured it out." I stared at her. "And that made it okay to bleed me dry?" She reached for me. "You're our daughter." "Not anymore." She froze. I took a breath. "I'm done being your daughter. From now on, you're just names on a billing ledger." Dawson shook his head. "You're cold." "No," I said. "I'm done being warm for people who left me out in the cold." Paris let out a sound, half sob, half gasp. It was raw, animalistic. I turned and walked to the door. Greg called after me. "You'll regret this." I paused. I already regret not doing it sooner. Then I opened the door and walked out. I didn't look back. Outside, I sat in my car, hands shaking. I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording, saved it, backed it up to the cloud. Then I drove straight to Ariel's. She opened the door, took one look at my face and stepped aside. "How bad?" They melted down. She handed me a drink. "Good." I sat on her couch and stared at the wall. I told them I'm done, that they're just names on a ledger now. Ariel nodded slowly. That's brutal. They earned it. She sat next to me. So what now? Now, I said, they deal with the consequences. Ariel smiled. You didn't just light the match. You burned the whole house down. I leaned back and exhaled, and I'm not going back to sweep the ashes. I was standing in line at the pharmacy when Dawson called. I stared at the screen, then hit decline. He called again. I picked up. What? You think this is over? His voice was tight, clipped. They're making me pay everything, backdated, with penalties. Sounds fair. You ruined everything. No, I said. I just stopped letting you ruin me. He was quiet for a beat. Then, you're going to regret this. I laughed. You've been saying that for weeks, still waiting. I hung up and blocked his number. Outside, the air was crisp. I walked to my car, popped the trunk, and dropped the bag of prescriptions inside. One was for Paris, refills she used to beg me to pick up. I didn't bother anymore. They had to figure that out on their own now. Back home, I kicked off my shoes and opened the window. The breeze smelled like rain. I stood there for a while, just breathing. No calls, no invoices, no guilt. Ariel came by around 7. She brought takeout and a bottle of wine. You look lighter, she said, handing me a carton of noodles. I feel it. She raised an eyebrow. Even after the letter? I nodded toward the coffee table. Didn't open it. Paris had sent it last week, a thick envelope, addressed in her handwriting. I'd tossed it next to the electric bill and never touched it again. You're not curious? Nope. Ariel smirked. That's growth. We ate on the floor like we used to in college. Halfway through dinner, she pulled out her phone. So I did a thing. I narrowed my eyes. What kind of thing? She turned the screen toward me. It was a Reddit post. R true off my chest. The title read, My family lied to me for years. I made them pay. Literally. You posted it? I asked. I changed names and details, but yeah, the world needed to hear it. I scrolled through the comments, thousands of upvotes, people calling it empowering, heartbreaking, satisfying. A few asked if it was real. I smiled. Let them wonder. Ariel raised her glass. To karma. We clinked. Later, after she left, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. Really looked. No more forced smiles, no more exhaustion carved into my skin. Just me. I started therapy last week. The first session, I cried the entire hour. The second, I talked about Paris's voice in my head, telling me to be grateful, to be quiet, to give more. The third, I brought a painting I'd started. My therapist asked what it meant. I said, it means I'm starting over. I still flinch when my phone rings. I still hesitate before opening the mailbox. Some wounds don't close clean. But I sleep through the night now. I say no without apologizing. I don't explain myself to people who never listened, and when I think about revenge, I don't feel guilty. I feel free. Everyone warned me revenge was bitter, but no one tells you how liberating it tastes when served cold on a silver tray you paid for yourself.
The call that shattered my world came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, right as I was finishing up a client meeting at Morris and Associates. I'm Caitlin, a corporate lawyer who spent the last decade building a reputation for integrity, only to discover my own family had been secretly destroying it. Ms. Pierce? Frank's voice wavered slightly. This is Frank Santos from First National. There seems to be an irregularity with your sister's mortgage payments. I frowned, shuffling papers on my desk. My sister's mortgage? I think you have the wrong person. No, that's actually why I'm calling. You're listed as a co-signer on Gwendolyn Pierce's mortgage for the property at 1542 Maple Avenue. The pen I'd been holding clattered to the desk. That's impossible. I never signed anything. Our records show otherwise. The paperwork was processed 6 months ago. Your parents brought in all the documentation. My parents? The room started spinning as pieces clicked into place. Their nervous behavior at Christmas, the way they changed the subject when I mentioned Gwen's new house, their insistence that I sign some routine paperwork during Mom's birthday dinner. I need to see these documents immediately, I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. Of course, I can email them now, but... Frank hesitated. There's more. The payments are 3 months behind. I gripped the edge of my desk. How much? Just over $12,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. I thanked Frank mechanically and ended the call, then immediately dialed Griffin's number. He'd been my best friend since law school, and right now I needed both a friend and a lawyer. Hey, stranger, he answered cheerfully. My family forged my signature. The words tumbled out. They put me on Gwen's mortgage without telling me. Jesus Christ. Griffin's tone shifted instantly to professional mode. Don't do anything yet. I'm coming to your office. 20 minutes later, Griffin was examining the documents Frank had emailed while I paced behind him. Look at this. He pointed to a signature. They didn't even try hard to match your handwriting. I leaned in, stomach churning. The signature was clearly my mother's attempt at copying mine. The K had her distinctive curl. My phone buzzed. Mom's smiling face appeared on the screen. I showed it to Griffin. Answer it, he mouthed. Stay calm. I took a deep breath and hit accept. Hi, Mom. Sweetie, are you free for dinner tonight? Your father's making his famous lasagna. The casual tone made my blood boil. Actually, funny you should call. I just had an interesting chat with Frank Santos. Silence, then. Oh, honey, we were going to tell you. Tell me what? That you forged my signature? That you made me legally responsible for Gwen's house without my knowledge? It's not like that. Mom's voice rose defensively. Gwen needed help, and you're doing so well. The bank wouldn't approve her loan otherwise. So you committed fraud? My voice cracked. Do you have any idea what this could do to my career? Don't be dramatic, Caitlin. We're family. Families help each other. Help each other? Or help Gwen? The words tasted bitter. I'm coming over tonight. Have Gwen there too. We're going to fix this. Honey, I hung up, hands shaking. Griffin was already pulling up more documents on his laptop. There's definitely grounds for legal action, he said quietly. But are you sure you want to go that route? I sank into my chair, suddenly exhausted. I don't know what I want except answers. Then let's get them. Griffin started making notes. But first we need to protect you. I'm seeing red flags all over these documents. What do you mean? He turned the screen toward me. These mortgage papers? They're just the tip of the iceberg. There's language here suggesting other accounts, other obligations. We need to find out exactly what they've tied you to. I stared at the documents, my parents' betrayal spreading like poison through every happy memory I had of them. All those family dinners, all those proud smiles when I made partner, were they just grooming me to be their unwitting financial safety net? Griffin? My voice was barely a whisper. Help me burn it all down. He reached across the desk and squeezed my hand. We'll do better than that. We'll make sure they face every consequence they've earned, starting with dinner tonight. I nodded, rage and determination crystallizing into something cold and clear. They wanted to use my success against me? Fine. They were about to learn exactly how successful I could be at fighting back. Griffin's office looked like a crime scene by midnight, with documents spread across every surface and yellow sticky notes, creating a web of connections on his whiteboard. We'd skipped the family dinner. My phone had blown up with texts from Mom, Dad, and Gwen, but I'd ignored them all. This was more important. Look at this, Griffin said, holding up a credit card statement. A platinum card opened in your name 3 months ago. The address is your parents' house. I grabbed the paper, scanning the charges. I never applied for this card. And these purchases, designer bags, spa treatments, restaurant bills, this is all Gwen's spending pattern. They're getting sloppy, Griffin muttered, typing furiously on his laptop. The card was opened with an online application. Want to bet they used your social security number? A knock at the door made us both jump. It was Solstice from the firm's financial crimes division, carrying 3 cups of coffee. Thought you could use reinforcements? She said, handing them out. Griffin filled me in. This is seriously messed up, Caitlin. I took a grateful sip. Can you help us trace anything else they might have opened in my name? Already on it. Solstice pulled up a chair. I've got access to databases that'll show us every account linked to your SSN, but you should probably sit down for this. My stomach dropped. How bad? 3 credit cards, 2 personal loans, and she paused. There's something weird with your investment accounts. Griffin leaned forward. Weird how? Someone's been using them as collateral for other loans. The paperwork looks legitimate at first glance, but the timestamps don't add up. These documents were backdated. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Gwen. Please pick up. Mom's crying and Dad's furious. We need to talk about this as a family. I showed the message to Griffin. Reply, he advised, but don't give anything away. We need to know how deep this goes before confronting them. I typed, still at work. We'll talk tomorrow. Solstice whistled softly, staring at her screen. Caitlin, when was the last time you checked your credit score? 6 months ago, it was over 800. It's 642 now. The room spun slightly. Everything I'd worked for, my financial reputation, my carefully built credit history, all of it damaged because my family decided to use me as their personal ATM. There's something else, Griffin said slowly, examining a document. These loan applications, they're not just using your current income. They're listing future projections based on your career track. They're banking on your next promotion. How would they even know about that? I demanded. Because Dad's golf buddy is on the firm's board, I realized, the pieces clicking together. He must have mentioned the partnership track discussions. Solstice started organizing papers into piles. Okay, here's what we know. They've created roughly $300,000 in debt under your name. The mortgage is the biggest piece, but these other accounts suggest they're building a safety net. My guess? Gwen's house of cards is about to collapse, and they're preparing for it. By sacrificing me instead, I said bitterly. Griffin grabbed a fresh legal pad. We need to document everything tonight. Tomorrow we'll start a damage control. First step is freezing your credit and filing fraud alerts. Then we dispute every account they open without authorization. But the mortgage? I hesitated. If we do that, Gwen could lose her house. That's not your problem, Solstice said firmly. They made their choices. Now they get to face the consequences. My phone lit up with another text from Mom. We did this for your sister. You've always been the strong one. Please understand. The strong one. That's what they'd always called me, their reliable daughter who could handle anything. Now I understood. It wasn't a compliment. It was their justification for taking advantage of me. I need to know one thing, I said, looking at Griffin. Can we prove they forged my signature beyond any doubt? He nodded grimly. The timestamps alone prove you couldn't have signed these documents. You were in court during half these application dates. Plus, we can get handwriting analysis done. Good. I stood up, suddenly energized by anger. Because tomorrow I'm not just freezing my credit. I'm going to make sure they never do this to anyone else again. Solstice raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to talk to Frank Santos again. If they forged documents at his bank, he needs to know. And once he files his report, I smiled without humor. Well, fraud investigations tend to uncover all sorts of interesting things. Griffin started gathering the documents. You sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back. I looked at the text messages from my family, each one assuming I would cave, that I would understand, that I would sacrifice myself to protect them, just like I always had. I'm sure, I said. It's time they learned what the strong one is really capable of. The smell of Dad's lasagna filled the house as I walked in without knocking. My parents and Gwen sat at the dining room table, a perfect family portrait except for their tense expressions. The manila envelope in my hand felt heavy with proof of their betrayal. Finally, Mom said, trying to sound normal, we saved you a plate. I dropped the envelope on the table, cutting her off. Let's skip the pretense. Here's everything I found last night. Want to explain or should I start? Dad reached for the envelope, but I snatched it back. No, you've done enough handling my paperwork. Don't take that tone with us, he snapped. We're your parents. Parents don't commit identity theft against their children. Gwen burst into tears. It wasn't supposed to be like this. The house was a good investment. I just needed help with the down payment. The house? I laughed harshly. This goes way beyond the house, Gwen. 3 credit cards, personal loans, using my investment accounts as collateral. Mom's face went pale. How did you? I'm a lawyer, Mom. Did you forget that when you were forging my signature? Or did you just count on me being too much of a pushover to fight back? We did it because we love you both, Dad said, his voice rising. Your sister needed help and you had the means to help her? I finished. Funny how you never asked if I wanted to. I'll pay everything back, Gwen sobbed. I promise. I just need time. Time? I pulled out her credit card statements. You spent $12,000 at Nordstrom last month, another $8,000 at that spa in Vegas. How exactly are you planning to pay this back? The silence was deafening. That's what I thought. I turned to my parents. And you too. Using Dad's connection at my firm to get insider information about my career prospects? That's a new low. Mom stood up suddenly. You don't understand what it's like, watching one daughter succeed while the other struggles. We had to balance things out. Balance things out, my voice cracked, by destroying my credit, by risking my career, my law license. Don't be dramatic, Dad started, but I cut him off. Dramatic? Let me tell you what's dramatic. Tomorrow morning I'm meeting with Frank Santos. I'm filing fraud reports on every account you opened in my name. Then I'm contacting the police. Gwen's sobs turned to hiccups. You wouldn't? Try me. Please. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled away. We can figure this out as a family. Your sister's house is not my problem. I turned to Gwen. You have 3 months of missed mortgage payments. How are you planning to fix that? She looked down at the table. Mom and Dad said they'd help. With what money? I demanded. The credit cards in my name are maxed out. The loans are behind on payments. Where exactly is this help coming from? More silence. That's what I thought. I pulled out one final document. This is a formal statement denying any knowledge of or consent to these accounts. I'm filing it with every credit bureau and bank involved. You'll ruin us, Dad said quietly. The words hit like a slap. No, you ruined yourselves, and you tried to ruin me in the process. I'm scared, Gwen whispered. I can't lose my house. I don't know how to fix this. For a moment, looking at my little sister's tear-stained face, I wavered. Then I remembered the methodical way they'd stolen my identity, planned their deception, used my success against me. You should be scared. Actions have consequences. Welcome to yours. Mom started crying then. big theatrical sobs that used to make me cave instantly. We're family. How can you do this to your family? Family? I gathered my documents. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't commit fraud. Family doesn't sacrifice one child to enable another's spending addiction. Caitlin, please. Gwen reached for me. I'll do anything. Just don't report this. We can work something out. I looked at them. My sobbing mother, my angry father, my desperate sister. The family that had shaped me, raised me, and then betrayed me without hesitation. You have 24 hours, I said finally. Either you come clean to Frank yourselves or I do it for you. Either way, this ends tomorrow. I walked out, ignoring their calls behind me. In my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Griffin. How did it go? I typed back. They're still trying to manipulate me, but tomorrow they learn what happens when the strong one finally stands up for herself. Starting the engine, I caught a glimpse of them through the dining room window, huddled together, probably already planning their next move. But this time I was 10 steps ahead, and I wasn't backing down. Solstice's office looked like a war room when I arrived the next morning. Multiple screens displayed financial records, and a printer hummed continuously, spitting out more evidence. You're not going to believe this, she said, spinning her monitor toward me. Your sister's spending isn't random. There's a pattern. I leaned in, scanning the transactions. What do you mean? Look at the timing. Every major purchase coincides with your parents' social events. Country club dinners, charity galas, board member meetings. She was keeping up appearances, I realized, making sure everyone thought the family was doing well. Exactly, but here's where it gets interesting. Solstice pulled up another screen. I found a shadow account. Your parents have been moving money around, trying to cover the tracks. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. We're meeting with Frank this afternoon. Please reconsider your position. They're trying to get ahead of me. I showed Solstice the message, but they don't know what we found. Speaking of finding things, she hesitated. There's something else. Your sister's been applying for jobs using your credentials. What? She handed me a stack of papers. Found these in the background check databases. She's been submitting resumes with your law degree and bar admission, just changing the name. The room spun slightly. That's not just fraud. That could get her arrested. It gets worse, Griffin said from the doorway. I hadn't even heard him come in. Just got off the phone with a headhunter friend. Gwen interviewed for 3 positions using your credentials. One company was about to make her an offer. I sank into a chair. Did she actually think she could pull that off? People would figure it out eventually, Solstice said, but by then she'd have a foot in the door and a salary history to leverage. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Frank. Your parents are here. They're telling a very different story. Please come to the bank immediately. Of course they are, I muttered. They're trying to spin this before I can present evidence. Griffin grabbed his briefcase. Let's go. I've got everything we need to prove the forgeries. Wait, Solstice called up one more document. Take this too. It's proof that your parents accessed your investment accounts without authorization. The IP address is traced back to their home computer. The drive to the bank felt surreal. Through the lobby windows, I could see my parents sitting in Frank's office, Mom dabbing at her eyes with a tissue while Dad gestured emphatically. Ready? Griffin asked quietly. I straightened my spine. More than ready. Frank's office fell silent as we walked in. Mom's eyes widened at the sight of Griffin. This is a family matter, Dad started to say. No, I cut him off. This is a criminal matter. Frank, I have proof that my parents and sister committed multiple counts of fraud using my identity. Now wait just a minute. Dad stood up. Sit down, Griffin said firmly, "unless you prefer to have this conversation at the police station." Frank looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. "Your parents say they had your verbal permission." "They didn't." I started laying out documents. "Here are the forged signatures. Here are the unauthorized account access logs. And here," I placed Gwen's fake resumes on top, "is evidence of my sister committing employment fraud using my credentials." Mom burst into fresh tears. "We were desperate. Gwen needed—" "I don't care what Gwen needed," I snapped. "You committed crimes, multiple crimes, and now you have a choice." Frank picked up the forgery evidence, his face growing darker as he read. This is very serious." "We know," Griffin said. "That's why we're giving you a chance to handle this internally first. But if you don't, our next stop is the district attorney's office." Dad's face had gone from red to pale. "You would send your own sister to jail?" "You would steal your daughter's identity," I countered. "Forge her signature? Use her career to prop up your lies?" Frank cleared his throat. "I'll need to report this to our fraud department and freeze all associated accounts immediately." "That's not necessary," Mom began. "Yes, it is," I said firmly. "And here's what's going to happen next. You're going to admit to everything. You're going to close every fraudulent account, and you're going to face whatever consequences the bank decides on." "Or," Dad challenged, "or I press criminal charges. Your choice." The silence stretched thick and heavy. Finally, Frank spoke. "I need to make some calls. Please wait here." As he left the office, I looked at my parents, really looked at them. They seemed smaller somehow, their self-righteous anger crumbling into fear. "You did this," Mom whispered. "You destroyed our family." "No," I stood up, gathering my evidence. "You did that all by yourselves. I'm just making sure you can't destroy anyone else." My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Solstice. "Found more. When you're done there, you need to see this." I showed Griffin the message. He nodded grimly. The day wasn't over yet, and something told me the worst was still to come. Back at the office, Solstice was pacing, her usual calm demeanor shattered. She thrust a stack of papers at me the moment I walked in. "Look at this." She pointed to a series of transactions. "Your parents' shadow account? It's not just about covering Gwen's spending. They've been running a small-scale Ponzi scheme through the country club." Griffin grabbed the documents. "What kind of scheme?" "They've been investing other members' money, promising returns from some exclusive fund. But the money's just being shuffled around to pay earlier investors and fund Gwen's lifestyle." My legs went weak. "How much?" "Nearly $2 million. Solstice pulled up a spreadsheet. "And guess whose investment accounts they use as proof of their success?" "Mine." The word tasted like ash. "They showed people my portfolio to convince them to invest." "Exactly. Your success made their scam believable." My phone rang. Frank again. I put it on speaker. "Caitlin, we've got a problem. Your parents left the bank and immediately tried to withdraw large sums from multiple accounts." "Were they successful?" "No, we froze everything in time. But," he hesitated, "they're claiming you're trying to extort them. They're threatening to report you to the Bar Association." I laughed bitterly. "Let them try. Frank, I need to tell you something else. They've been running an investment scam." A commotion outside interrupted me. Through the glass walls, I saw my father storming through the office, Mom and Gwen trailing behind him. "We need security," Solstice said, reaching for her phone. "No," I stood up. "Let them come." Dad burst in, his face purple with rage. "You think you can destroy us? We'll take you down with us." "Really?" I held up the Ponzi scheme evidence. "Want to explain this to everyone first?" The color drained from his face. Behind him, Mom gasped. "Where did you get that?" "Does it matter? What matters is that you didn't just steal from me." You stole from everyone who trusted you. Gwen pushed forward. It wasn't stealing. Dad was helping people invest. In what? I demanded. There is no investment fund. Just you living beyond your means while they use my success to lure in more victims. We can fix this, Mom pleaded. If you just give us time. Time for what? To find more victims? To forge more documents? To steal more identities? You ungrateful. Dad started forward, but Griffin stepped between us. Think carefully about your next move, he warned. The police are already on their way. You called the police? Gwen's voice rose hysterically. No, Solstice said from her desk. The bank did. Standard procedure for attempted withdrawal after a fraud alert. As if on cue, 2 officers appeared in the doorway. Is there a problem here? Dad deflated visibly. Mom started crying again. But Gwen looked at me with pure hatred. You really want to do this? She hissed. Fine, but I'm not going down alone. I'll tell them everything. How you knew about the investments. How you helped set up the accounts. Except I didn't, I cut her off. And we both know it. But please, keep talking. The officers would love to hear about your employment fraud, too. The police moved into the room, taking statements. I watched as my family's facade crumbled completely. Mom's tears turned real. Dad's bluster gave way to defeat. And Gwen, my little sister, who I'd protected all our lives, sat in stony silence as the officers explained the charges. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Your parents owe me $200,000. They said you'd guarantee the investment. We need to talk. Then another. They promised returns from your hedge fund connections. And another. My retirement money. They said you were managing it. The messages kept coming. More victims, more lies, more lives destroyed by my family's deception. Griffin touched my arm. You okay? No, I said honestly, but I will be, because this ends today. I turned to the officers. I want to press charges, all of them, and I have evidence of additional financial crimes you need to see. You can't, Mom wailed. We're your family. I looked at them, really looked at them. My mother who taught me about integrity while helping forge my signature. My father who bragged about my success while using it to deceive others. My sister who took everything I earned and still wanted more. No, I said quietly, family doesn't do this. Family doesn't steal and lie and destroy lives. You're not my family anymore. You're just criminals who happen to share my DNA. The officers began leading them out. Gwen turned back at the door. I hope you're happy, she spat. You've ruined everything. I watched them go, feeling oddly peaceful. No, I whispered. I just stopped you from ruining anyone else. Solstice was already pulling up more records. There's going to be fallout from this. More victims will come forward. I know. I sat down at her desk. So let's find them first. Every last one. The day wasn't over, but for the first time since this started, I felt truly strong. Not their version of strong, the kind that enabled their crimes, but my own strength built on truth and justice. And I was just getting started. The victim statements kept coming in over the next week. Griffin and I had taken over the firm's conference room, walls now covered with photos and connecting lines like a crime show investigation board. Each new revelation felt like another punch to the gut. 14 victims so far, Griffin said, adding another photo. Most of them elderly members of the country club. Your parents really knew how to pick their targets. A knock at the door made us both look up. It was Frank, looking exhausted. You need to see this, he said, placing a USB drive on the table. We found hidden accounts, offshore ones. My heart sank. How much? Close to $3 million. They've been moving money to the Cayman Islands for months. Griffin whistled softly. That's not amateur hour anymore. That's serious financial crime. There's more. Frank hesitated. Some of the transfers, they were made from your office computer, late at night. I frowned. That's impossible. I never... The cleaning crew, Solstice said from the doorway. Remember how Gwen used to visit you at work, always staying late, saying she wanted to spend time with you? The pieces clicked together. She was using my computer after I left, with login credentials that matched yours perfectly, Solstice confirmed. She must have installed a keylogger during one of her visits. My phone buzzed, a call from the county jail. I ignored it, like I'd ignored the dozen others this week. The FBI wants to talk to you, Frank said quietly. This crossed state lines. It's federal now. Good. I stood up, stretching. Because I found something else they'll want to see. I pulled out a file I'd been saving. Inside were photos from my parents' social media, specifically their recent vacations. Look at the dates, I pointed. Every major withdrawal from the victims' accounts corresponds with a luxury trip. Here's Mom on a yacht in Greece, Dad golfing in Dubai, Gwen shopping in Paris. All funded with stolen money, Griffin realized, and posted online for everyone to see. They weren't even trying to hide it. Another knock. This time it was an elderly woman I recognized from the country club, Margaret, one of my mother's closest friends. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said softly, but I needed to tell you something. I gestured for her to sit. She pulled out an old photo, my high school graduation. In it, my parents beamed proudly while Gwen sulked in the background. Your mother told me something that day, Margaret said. She said she'd always have to work harder for Gwen because you were so naturally gifted, that you'd be fine on your own, but Gwen needed extra help. My throat tightened. She told you that 15 years ago? Yes, and now I realize they've been planning this for years, positioning you as the successful one, the strong one, so they could use your reputation to help Gwen. The revelation hit like a physical blow. My entire adult life, my career, my success, my reputation, had been cultivated by them not with pride but with calculation. Mrs. Anderson called me this morning, Frank added. She lost her husband's life insurance money to your parents' scheme. She's going to lose her house. No, she won't, I said firmly, because we're going to find every penny they stole, starting with those offshore accounts. Griffin was already making calls. I know someone at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. We can expedite this. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Mom. The lawyers say we could face 20 years. Please, sweetheart, help us one last time. I showed it to Griffin. They're still trying to manipulate you, he said gently, still trying to use your strength against you. I know. I turned to Margaret. How many other victims haven't come forward yet? She looked down. Many. They're ashamed, embarrassed. Your parents were so respected in the community. Then we'll help them too, I decided. All of them. Every last person they deceived. Solstice's computer pinged. Got something. A series of transfers to an account in Singapore, recent too, made right after your confrontation at the bank. They were planning their escape, Griffin realized. If we hadn't stopped them, they would have disappeared with everyone's money, I finished, leaving me to deal with the fallout. Another text from Mom. We're family. Families protect each other. I finally replied, yes, they do. That's why I'm protecting everyone else from you. Then I turned to the others. Let's get to work. We've got money to trace, victims to find, and justice to serve. Margaret touched my hand. You truly are the strong one, dear, just not in the way they intended. Looking at the evidence wall, the faces of people whose trust had been betrayed, whose lives had been upended, I felt that strength surge through me, not the strength to enable crimes, but the strength to stop them. No, I said quietly, I'm just doing what they never had the strength to do, the right thing. The federal courthouse loomed before me as I clutched the final dossier, every transaction, every victim, every lie meticulously documented. 2 FBI agents flanked me as we walked in, their presence both reassuring and surreal. You ready for this? Agent Torres asked quietly. I've been ready for weeks. The courtroom doors opened to reveal my family sitting with their lawyers. Mom's designer outfit had been replaced by modest business wear. Dad's golf tan had faded in Gwen. Gwen looked like a stranger in her plain black suit. The prosecution calls Caitlin Pierce, the DA announced. Walking to the witness stand, I felt their eyes burning into me. Mom mouthed, please, as I passed. I kept my gaze forward. Ms. Pierce, please tell the court about when you first discovered the financial irregularities involving your family. I took a deep breath. It started with a call from my bank about my sister's mortgage. For the next hour, I laid out everything, the forged signatures, the stolen identity, the Ponzi scheme, the offshore accounts. With each revelation, I watched their facades crumble further. And these luxury purchases? The DA held up photos from their social media, all made with victim funds. Yes, while elderly victims lost their life savings, my sister was posting Instagram stories from 5-star hotels in Paris. Gwen's lawyer stood up. Objection. Prejudicial. Overruled, the judge said. Continue. The total amount stolen exceeds $5 million, I stated. They used my reputation, my credentials, and my identity to lure victims into their scheme. And the victims? The DA prompted. 28 confirmed so far, mostly elderly members of the country club, people who trusted my parents, who trusted our family name. Dad's lawyer tried next. Isn't it true that you benefited from your family's financial success? No, I said firmly. I earned everything I have. They stole everything they had. But surely you knew. What I knew, I cut in, was that my parents raised me to believe in integrity while secretly planning to use my success for their fraud. What I knew was that my sister cried about needing help while spending stolen money on luxury goods. What I knew was that they destroyed lives while hiding behind my reputation. The courtroom fell silent. Your Honor, I continued, pulling out one final document. I have here a list of every victim, every dollar stolen, and every false investment promise made. I'm also providing evidence of additional offshore accounts we've uncovered. Mom started crying, not her usual theatrical sobs, but real, broken tears. Ms. Pierce, the judge leaned forward. You understand that this testimony will likely send your family to prison? Yes, Your Honor, and they understand that their actions sent innocent people into poverty. Gwen suddenly stood up. This isn't fair. You had everything. The perfect career, the perfect life. What about me? Order! The judge banged his gavel. What about Mrs. Anderson? I shot back. She's losing her house because of you. What about Mr. Roberts? He can't afford his wife's medical care anymore. What about— Enough, Dad shouted. We did it for you to make sure you'd always take care of your sister. The judge banged his gavel again. One more outburst and I'll clear the court. But I wasn't finished. You did it for yourselves. You did it because it was easier to steal than work, easier to lie than earn, easier to destroy lives than build them. The DA stood up. Your Honor, we'd like to enter these new documents into evidence. As the bailiff collected the files, I finally looked directly at my family. Mom had collapsed against Dad, her makeup streaked with tears. Dad stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched. And Gwen looked at me with such hatred it almost took my breath away. I hope you're happy, she hissed as I walked past. I stopped. No, I'm not happy. I'm devastated, but I'm also done protecting people who prey on others. Outside the courtroom, Griffin waited with Solstice and Frank. How did it go? Griffin asked. They'll be lucky to get minimum sentences, I said. The offshore accounts sealed it. Frank nodded grimly. The bank's already started the restitution process for the victims. And the FBI found 2 more accounts this morning, Solstice added, in Switzerland. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. We can still fix this, please, for family. I deleted it without responding. Family wasn't about enabling crimes or protecting criminals. It was about doing what's right, even when it hurts. The sentencing is next week, I said quietly. Then it's really over. Griffin squeezed my shoulder. No, then justice finally begins. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt lighter somehow. The truth hadn't just set me free, it had given me the strength to set others free too, from lies, from manipulation, from fraud. And that was worth more than any family loyalty. The sentencing hearing was standing room only. Every victim had come to witness justice being served. Mrs. Anderson sat beside me, clutching my hand as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. Before I announced the sentences, the judge began, "Would any of the defendants like to make a final statement?" Mom stood first, trembling. "We made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but we did it out of love." "No." I surprised myself by standing. "Your Honor, may I speak?" The judge nodded. "Love doesn't steal retirement funds from elderly neighbors. Love doesn't forge signatures or commit identity theft. Love doesn't destroy lives while posting luxury vacation photos. What they did wasn't love, it was greed, pure and simple." Dad jumped up. "How dare you?" "Mr. Pierce, sit down," the judge ordered. "Based on the severity of these crimes, the systematic nature of the fraud, and the devastating impact on the victims, I hereby sentence Gordon Pierce to 18 years in federal prison, Angela Pierce to 15 years, Gwendolyn Pierce to 12 years. The room erupted in murmurs. Gwen collapsed in tears. Mom reached for Dad but was stopped by a bailiff. "Additionally," the judge continued, "all assets will be seized and liquidated to repay the victims. The offshore accounts will be frozen and repatriated." Mrs. Anderson squeezed my hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "I can keep my house now." As they led my family away, Gwen turned to me one last time. "I'll never forgive you for this." "I know," I said quietly, "but the victims will never forgive you either." Outside the courthouse, Griffin handed me an envelope. "The firm made a decision. They want you to head the new victim restitution program." I opened it to find an official letter. "Using my experience to help other fraud victims?" "You're uniquely qualified," Solstice said, joining us. "Who better to help people rebuild after betrayal?" My phone buzzed. A message from Frank. "First victim repayments going out today. You did good, Caitlin." Margaret approached with several other country club members. "We're having dinner tonight to celebrate justice and new beginnings. Will you join us?" Looking at their faces, no longer victims but survivors, I felt something shift inside me. I'd be honored. "There's something else," Griffin said. "Remember that advice forum where you used to post about family drama?" I nodded. During the darkest days of discovering my family's betrayal, I'd found solace sharing my story online. Your posts went viral. People are calling you the fraud fighter. There's a support group forming for victims of family financial abuse. They want you to speak at their first meeting, Solstice added. Share your story. Help others find their strength. The courthouse doors opened again. As my family was led to separate transport vehicles, I watched them for the last time. Not as my parents and sister, but as criminals facing consequences. "Ready to go?" Griffin asked softly. "Almost." I turned to the gathered victims. Anyone who needs help rebuilding their credit, sorting out legal issues, or just needs someone to talk to. Here's my card. My door's always open. Mrs. Anderson hugged me. You turn something terrible into something helpful. That's real strength. At dinner that night, surrounded by people who'd been hurt but were healing, I finally felt at peace. My phone lay silent. No more manipulative texts, no more guilt trips, no more lies. A toast, Margaret raised her glass, to truth, justice, and the courage to fight for both. And to family, I added, looking around the table, the kind we choose, not the kind that chooses to hurt us. Later that night, I sat in my office looking at the victim restitution files. Each one represented someone who needed help rebuilding their life after betrayal, just like I had. Griffin knocked on my door. First support group meeting is tomorrow. Sure you're ready? I picked up a photo from my desk, the last family picture taken before everything unraveled. In it, we looked perfect, happy. But now I could see the calculation behind their smiles, the greed behind their poses. I turned the photo face down. I'm ready, because this isn't just about justice anymore. It's about prevention, about helping others spot the red flags I missed, about turning victims into survivors. That's my strong one, he smiled. No, I corrected him. That's my choice. Being strong isn't about enabling bad behavior or protecting criminals. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it breaks your heart. I looked at the files again, at all the people waiting for help, for hope, for healing. So let's get to work. There are more stories to hear, more battles to fight, and more lives to rebuild. Because sometimes the happiest endings don't come from saving your family. They come from saving everyone else from them.
The courthouse steps felt cold under my bare legs that morning. I'd chosen a simple cream dress, nothing fancy, just elegant enough for what should have been the happiest day of my life. My fiancé Dorian squeezed my hand as we waited, checking his watch every few minutes. I kept staring at the entrance, hoping they'd show up despite everything. They never did. My name is Melanie, and that was the day I learned what family really meant, or in my case, what it didn't mean. "They're not coming, are they?" Dorian whispered, his voice gentle but firm. I shook my head, fighting back tears that threatened to ruin my drugstore mascara. "The judge is ready for you," the clerk called out, and we walked in together, our witnesses, my best friend Sabrina and Dorian's brother, trailing behind us. Just 2 months earlier, my brother Caden had gotten married in a $300,000 ceremony at the plaza. Mother wore Valentino and cried perfect tears while Dad gave a speech about legacy and pride. I'd stood in the back, wearing the bridesmaid dress they'd chosen, watching them beam at their golden child. The contrast couldn't have been starker. My wedding took exactly 12 minutes. The judge was kind, at least. She smiled warmly when we exchanged our simple gold bands, all we could afford on our combined entry-level salaries. That night, in our tiny one-bedroom apartment, I checked my phone one last time. 3 messages, all from Mom. "This is embarrassing, Melanie. A courthouse wedding? What will people think? Your father is devastated. We raised you better than this. Caden says you're making a huge mistake. That boy will never amount to anything." Dorian found me crying in our kitchen, surrounded by takeout containers from the Chinese place downstairs, our wedding feast. He didn't say anything, just sat beside me and opened his laptop. "Remember that app idea we talked about?" he said finally. "The one for streamlining supply chain management?" I wiped my eyes. "The one nobody wants to fund." "Screw funding," he started typing. "We have our brains. We have our savings. Let's build something they can't ignore." That night, we worked until dawn, sketching out flowcharts on paper napkins. Every rejection, every snide comment, every disappointed look, we transformed them into code, into business plans, into determination. We lived on ramen and coffee for 2 years. Dorian took freelance coding jobs while I refined our prototype. When Google offered to double my salary to stay in my safe programming job, I turned them down. We had bigger dreams. The first investor meeting was terrifying. 5 men in suits looking skeptically at our presentation. But our demo worked perfectly, and by the end, they were fighting to write us checks. That was 10 years ago. Now I'm sitting in my glass-walled office, overlooking the Los Angeles skyline. Our company, Henry Tech, is valued at just over $3 billion. Dorian runs operations while I handle strategy and development. We have over 500 employees. My assistant Sabrina, yes, the same one who witnessed our wedding, knocks on my door. Her face is unusually serious. Mel, security just called. There are people at the gate. I turn to my monitors, clicking through the security feeds. The camera shows two figures I haven't seen in person for nearly a decade. They look smaller somehow, diminished. My mother's designer clothes are wrinkled, my father's normally perfect hair unkempt. They're saying they're your parents, Sabrina continues, her voice tight with protective anger. Should I have security remove them? I zoom in on the feed. Mum is crying, mascara running down her cheeks. Dad keeps looking over his shoulder like he's being hunted. They look desperate, broken. My finger hovers over the intercom button. Part of me wants to leave them standing there, let them feel a fraction of what I felt on those courthouse steps. But that would be too easy, too quick. Let them in, I say finally, my voice steady. Have Thomas escort them to the main house. Tell them I'll be there shortly. Sabrina raises an eyebrow. Are you sure? I stand up, smoothing down my Armani suit, the kind of outfit my mother always dreamed of wearing. Absolutely. It's time for a family reunion. My phone buzzes, a text from Dorian. I saw who's here. Want me to come home? I type back. No, stay at the office. I've been preparing for this day for 10 years. Looking out over the city, I allow myself a small smile. They thought a courthouse wedding was beneath them? Wait until they see what their embarrassment of a daughter has planned for them. Sabrina, I call out, have the guest house prepared. I think my parents might be staying a while. The security feed didn't do justice to how badly they'd aged. As I walk down the marble staircase of my home, I barely recognise the two people standing in my foyer. Mum's carefully maintained blonde highlights had given way to grey roots, and Dad's proud posture had collapsed into a permanent stoop. Melanie, Mum whispered, taking a step forward, you look successful. I kept my distance, gesturing to the living room. Please sit. Would you like something to drink? Water? Wine? We have a lovely Bordeaux that costs about what you spent on Caden's wedding cake. They shuffled to the cream-coloured sofa, perching awkwardly like birds ready to flee. Dad cleared his throat. Water would be fine. Sabrina, I called out. She appeared instantly, tablet in hand. Water for my guests, and the Bordeaux for me. Right away, she said, shooting my parents a look that could freeze hell. Your house is beautiful, Mum ventured, her eyes darting around the room. We had no idea you'd done so well for yourself. You would have if you bothered to read any business magazines in the last 5 years. I settled into my favourite armchair, crossing my legs. Or opened any of the Christmas cards we sent, or attended any of the industry events where I gave keynote speeches. Dad's face reddened. We've made mistakes, sweetheart. Don't! My voice cut through the air like a blade. You lost the right to call me that when you told the country club I was finding myself, instead of admitting I was building a tech company. Sabrina returned with the drinks. I took a slow sip of wine, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. We need help, Mum finally blurted out. Everything's gone. The house, the cars, our savings. Let me guess, I interrupted. Caden's investment scheme finally collapsed. Their shocked faces confirmed it. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through news alerts I'd been collecting. Rising Star falls, Weaver Capital under federal investigation. I read aloud. Investors lose millions in suspected pyramid scheme. My favourite is this one. Golden Boy's empire built on sand. How did you know? Dad asked. I smiled. I've had a private investigator tracking Caden's business dealings for years. The moment he started moving money through shell companies in the Caymans, I knew it was just a matter of time. You've been spying on your own brother? Mum's voice rose with indignation. No, I've been protecting myself from my own brother, I corrected her. The same brother who told potential investors not to waste their money on my cute little startup 5 years ago. A memory surfaced, their voices carrying through the country club's dining room 3 years ago. Caden's going to revolutionise Wall Street. Oh, Melanie, she's just playing with computers. Like a hobby, really. We have nowhere else to go, Dad admitted, his voice breaking. Your brother. He convinced us to invest everything. Our retirement, our equity. And now you're here, I finished, hoping your embarrassment of a daughter might help. Mom started crying, perfectly timed tears just like at Caden's wedding. We're family, Melanie, despite everything. Family? I stood up, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows. Funny how that word only matters when you need something from me. Please, Dad begged. Just until we can get back on our feet. We can stay anywhere, a spare room, even a garage. I turned back to them, my expression carefully neutral. Actually, I do have a proposition for you. Not exactly cash, but an arrangement. Hope flickered across their faces. Poor desperate fools. We have a guest house, I continued. It's comfortable. Nothing like your old mansion, but it has the basics. You can stay there up for 6 months. Oh, thank God, Mom breathed. But there are conditions. I sat back down, leaning forward. Non-negotiable ones. Anything, Dad promised quickly. I caught Sabrina's eye, and she began typing on her tablet. First, you'll earn your keep. There are daily chores, maintenance tasks. You'll work for your room and board. Mum's mouth fell open, but I continued before she could object. Second, no contact with Caden at all. If I find out you've spoken to him, you're out immediately. But he's your brother, Mum started. Third, I spoke over her, we'll have weekly family dinners here in the main house. And during these dinners, you'll listen, really listen, to everything you've missed in the last 10 years. Dad's face had gone pale. What do you mean, listen? I smiled, the same cold smile I'd perfected in countless boardroom negotiations. Oh, I have so many stories to tell, starting with a courthouse wedding you couldn't be bothered to attend. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, Mum nodded, defeated. We'll do it. Excellent. I stood up. Sabrina will show you to the guest house. Your first dinner is tomorrow night at 7. Don't be late. As they followed Sabrina out, I heard Mom whisper to Dad, what choice do we have? None, I thought, watching them shuffle across my manicured lawn. That's exactly the point. At precisely 7 o'clock, my parents stood awkwardly in my dining room, wearing the clothes they'd arrived in yesterday. Mum kept fidgeting with her wrinkled silk blouse, while Dad stared at the elaborate place settings. You'll be serving tonight, I announced, settling into my chair at the head of the table. The kitchen staff has prepared everything. You just need to bring it out. Serving? Mum's voice cracked. Like waiters? Exactly like waiters, I smiled. The dishes are labelled. First course is the soup. They exchanged glances before Dad shuffled toward the kitchen. I heard a muffled argument. Then they emerged carrying bowls of butternut squash soup. Their hands shook as they set them down. Do you remember my graduation dinner? I asked, stirring my soup. The one you skipped because Caden had a networking event? Mum nearly dropped the bread basket. Melanie, that was... I just finished top of my class in computer science. Full honours. 3 job offers already lined up. I took a sip. The soup's getting cold. You should sit. They sank into their chairs, looking lost without their usual airs of superiority. I went to that dinner alone, I continued. Sat at Olive Garden by myself, wearing my graduation robe, while other families celebrated around me. The waitress felt so bad, she gave me free dessert. We sent the card, Dad muttered, with a $50 check, the same week you bought Caden a BMW for landing his first internship. I set down my spoon. Main course now, please. The salmon. As they served the fish, I pulled out my phone, showing them a news alert. Look what just hit the wire. Federal investigators expand probe into Weaver Capital fraud. Caden's really outdone himself this time. He made some mistakes, Mum defended weakly, but he never meant to. To what? Steal millions? Destroy people's life savings? Your retirement? I cut into my salmon. Tell me, did he mean to convince you to remortgage your house to invest in his guaranteed returns scheme? Dad's face crumpled. We trusted him. Like you trusted that I was making a mistake marrying Dorian? I reached for my wine. How's that judgment working out for you? A notification pinged on my phone. Security alert. I pulled up the camera feed to see a familiar figure lurking near the back gate. Speaking of poor decisions, I murmured, your golden boy is trespassing on my property right now. Their heads snapped up. Caden's here. Don't worry, security will handle it. I typed a quick message to my head of security. Though I'm curious, did you tell him where you were staying? He called earlier, Mum admitted. We just said we were safe, that's all. Strike one, I said coldly. Remember our agreement? No contact with Caden. He's desperate, Mom burst out. The FBI froze his accounts. His wife left him. He's sleeping in his car. Sounds like a him problem. I stood up. Since you've already broken one rule, let's accelerate tonight's story. Remember when Google offered to double my salary if I stayed instead of starting my company? They shook their heads. Of course you don't. Because when I called to tell you, you were too busy planning Caden's 31st birthday gala. I walked to the window, watching security escort my brother off the property. I turned down $300,000 a year because I believed in my vision. Dorian and I lived on ramen and worked 18-hour days. We built something real. We see that now, Dad said quietly. You've done amazingly well. No, I turned back to them. You don't get to be proud of me now. You don't get to claim any part of this success. You know what Caden told investors about my company? Called it a cute hobby project. Run by his little sister who plays with computers. Mum's face whitened. He wouldn't... I have the recordings, I cut in. Would you like to hear them? Along with the ones of you bragging about his fake success while dismissing my actual achievements? Silence fell heavy across the dining room. Finally, Dad spoke. What do you want from us, Melanie? Want? I laughed. I don't want anything from you. I want you to understand what it feels like to be powerless, to depend on someone else's mercy, to serve instead of being served. I pressed another button on my phone, and Sabrina entered with a stack of papers. These are your new schedules. Tomorrow you'll start with the gardens, weeding, pruning, the works. After that, there's windows to clean, floors to mop. I smiled. Consider it rent. We're not gardeners, Mum protested weakly. And I wasn't supposed to be a tech mogul, I replied. Funny how life works out. Now, dessert is in the kitchen. Something simple, humble pie. They stood, defeated, and headed for the kitchen. Behind them, through the window, I watched Caden's car slowly pull away from the curb. Don't worry, dear brother, I thought. Your turn is coming. The conference hall buzzed with anticipation as I stepped onto the stage. 3,000 people waited to hear the Silicon Queen, their words not mine, speak about disrupting traditional supply chain management. In the front row, I spotted my parents wearing the staff badges I'd arranged for them. Part of their duties this week was attending my keynote. 10 years ago, I began, I was told my ideas were too ambitious, that I should stick to a safe corporate job, play it small. My eyes locked with Mom's. Today, Henry Tech processes over $40 billion in transactions annually. Sometimes the smallest beginnings lead to the biggest revolutions. The audience erupted in applause. I saw Dad shift uncomfortably in his seat as his phone buzzed. His face went pale as he read whatever message had come through. After the speech, Sabrina intercepted me backstage. It's done, she whispered. The documents just went live. I nodded, checking my watch. 3, 2, 1... Right on cue, my mother burst into the green room waving her phone. Have you seen this? Someone leaked all of Caden's private banking records to the press. Really? I accepted a bottle of water from Sabrina. How unfortunate. It shows everything. Mum's voice hitched. The shell companies, the fake investments, oh God, the Ponzi scheme. It's all there. Karma's a fascinating thing, isn't it? I took a slow sip. Almost as fascinating as the fact that you're breaking our no-contact rule again by reading about Caden. This will destroy him completely, Dad said from the doorway, his face ashen. The FBI will have everything they need to prosecute. I shrugged, gathering my presentation materials. Sounds like justice to me. Justice? Mum's voice rose. He's your brother. Was my brother, I corrected her. The same brother who sabotaged my first round of funding by spreading rumours about my company's stability. The brother you always said had real ambition while I was just playing entrepreneur. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the door, I could see reporters gathering, cameras flashing. Miss Henry, they called out. Any comment on your brother's fraud scandal? I smiled at my parents. Excuse me, I have a press conference to attend. Stepping out, I faced the media with practised poise. Yes, I'm aware of the allegations against my brother. It's a tragic situation that highlights the importance of ethical business practices, something we've always prioritised at Henry Tech. Did you know about his fraudulent activities? Someone shouted. My brother and I haven't been in contact for years, I replied smoothly, but I'm not surprised. Success built on deception never lasts. Back in my office later that day, Sabrina brought in the afternoon papers. My speech made the business section, but Caden's scandal dominated the front page. Your parents are in the garden, she reported. Your mother's crying while pulling weeds. Good. I scanned the headlines. Any word from our friend at the FBI? They're moving to freeze all remaining assets, Sabrina confirmed, including the offshore accounts we anonymously identified. My phone buzzed. A text from Dorian. Just saw the news. You okay? Before I could reply, Mum burst into my office, mascara streaming down her face. It was you, wasn't it? You leaked those documents. I looked up calmly. You should knock before entering my office, and you should be finishing the rose bushes. Answer me, she demanded. Did you orchestrate this whole thing? Did you orchestrate having my wedding announcement removed from the society pages? I countered. Did you orchestrate telling your friends I was finding myself when I was actually building $1 billion company? That was different. You're right, I cut her off. It was different. Because I'm not hiding truth, I'm exposing it. Every document leaked was real. Every transaction authentic. I just accelerated the inevitable. Dad appeared in the doorway, looking broken. The FBI just called. They want to interview us about our investments with Caden. How convenient, I mused. You can tell them all about how your perfect son convinced you to invest your retirement, about the forged documents, the fake returns. We'll be implicated, Mum whispered. Only if you knew, I said softly. But you didn't know, did you? You were just... What's the word? Oh yes, naive, trusting, blinded by your golden boy's promises. Understanding dawned on their faces. I'd just handed them their defence strategy. Now, I continued, I believe those rose bushes need attention. And tomorrow we're having another family dinner. I have such an interesting story to tell about the time Caden tried to hack our company servers. They backed out slowly, finally understanding the full scope of what I'd orchestrated. Not just revenge, but calculated destruction of everything they'd valued above me. My phone buzzed again. A news alert. Breaking. Weaver Capital CEO named in federal indictment. I smiled, remembering Mum's words from years ago. Caden understands the real world better than you ever will. Funny how the real world works sometimes. Tonight's story, I announced, watching my parents serve the appetizers with trembling hands, is about my STEM scholarship to Stanford. Mum nearly dropped the plate of bruschetta. She knew exactly where this was going. Full ride, I continued, sampling a piece. Top 2% of applicants. The dean personally called to congratulate me. Melanie, please, Mum whispered. We've been working all day in the heat. Can't we just eat quietly? Like how you told me to be quiet when I tried to share my news at Caden's Harvard acceptance party. I took a sip of wine. Dad, why don't you tell the story of what you said that day? He stared at his plate. I don't remember. Really? Let me refresh your memory. Stanford's fine for a backup school, but it's no Harvard. At least you got a free ride since we're saving the college fund for something more prestigious. The silence stretched thick across the dining room. Outside, the sun was setting over Los Angeles, painting my empire in gold. The college fund that went to Caden's MBA, I added. The one he used to learn creative accounting, apparently. We thought Harvard would open more doors, Mum defended weakly. How's that working out? I gestured to their dirt-stained clothes. Speaking of doors, tell me about the graduation dinner you skipped. The one where I was supposed to announce my Google job offer. Dad shifted uncomfortably. There was an important dinner with Caden's mentors. Double my starting salary, I cut in, plus stock options. The kind of offer most parents would celebrate. But you didn't even return my calls. We didn't understand the tech industry then, Mum said quietly. No, you understood status, prestige, Harvard MBAs and country club memberships. I nodded to Sabrina, who began serving the main course. You understood everything, except actual value. My phone buzzed. Another news alert about Caden. The walls were closing in on him fast. Perfect timing. Remember when Dorian got sick? I asked, watching their faces carefully. During our startup's second year, he worked himself into pneumonia, but we couldn't afford good healthcare yet. Mum's hand trembled as she set down her fork. We all remembered. I called you, I continued. Asked to borrow $30,000 for his treatment. You said you were stretched thin from Caden's wedding planning. We didn't realise, Dad started, that he might die. My voice could have frozen hell. That your daughter's husband was in critical condition while you were picking out $1,000 centerpieces. What do you want from us? Mom burst out. We've apologised. We're literally serving you dinner in our gardening clothes. How much more humiliation do you want? I leaned forward. Humiliation? You want to talk about humiliation? Let's talk about my courthouse wedding. The one you told everyone was a youthful mistake. The one where you said Dorian would never amount to anything. We were wrong, Dad admitted. Obviously wrong. Look at all you've built together. No. I stood up, walking to the window. You don't get to admire what we built. You don't get to claim any part of our success. You get to serve dinner and listen. That's our deal. A car pulled up to the gate, a familiar luxury sedan. I smiled, right on schedule. Speaking of deals, I turned back to them. Look who's arrived. Your golden boy himself. They rushed to the window, watching Caden argue with security through the intercom. Please, Mum begged, let him in. He's desperate. Desperate people make desperate choices, I mused, like convincing their parents to invest their retirement in a Ponzi scheme. Dad's face crumpled. We trusted him. Yes, you did. Blindly, completely, destructively. I pressed the intercom. Security, please remind Mr. Weaver that he's trespassing. If he doesn't leave immediately, call the police. You can't do this, Mom protested. He's family. Family? I laughed. That word keeps coming up. Tell me, where was family when you chose his networking events over my achievements? Where was family when you watched me struggle while funding his excesses? Through the window, we watched Caden's car speed away, gravel spraying behind him. Sit down, I ordered. Dinner isn't over. Tonight's final story is about the day I made my first million. The day I bought this house. The day I finally understood that your approval meant nothing compared to what I'd built without you. They sank back into their chairs, defeated. In the distance, police sirens wailed, probably heading for Caden's last known location. Now then, I smiled, raising my glass. Who's ready for dessert? I believe humble pie is on the menu again. The setting sun cast long shadows across their faces, painting a portrait of Karma served cold, one course at a time. Your brother's ex-wife is here to see you, Sabrina announced, standing in my office doorway. She says it's urgent. I looked up from my laptop, surprised. Isabel hadn't contacted me since her divorce from Caden 2 years ago. Send her in. She entered wearing designer clothes that looked slightly worn, her perfect manicure chipped at the edges. The fall from grace had clearly begun before the public scandal. Melanie, she said, taking the seat I offered, you look successful. Amazing what hard work and ethical business practices can do, I replied. What brings you here, Isabel? She pulled out her phone, hands shaking slightly. Caden sent me this last night. I thought you should see it. The text message read, Tell Dad to take the fall. FBI doesn't have enough on me yet. He can claim he masterminded everything. His age will get him a lighter sentence. Wow, I said softly. Throwing your own father under the bus. That's low, even for him. He's spiralling, Isabel confirmed. Called me crying at 3 a.m, talking about fleeing to Mexico. I thought you should know what he's planning. I studied her carefully. Why are you really here, Isabel? Last I checked, you were firmly Team Caden during the divorce. She laughed bitterly. Team Caden? He asked me to lie to investors, forge documents. When I refused, he threatened to ruin me. Said no one would believe the trophy wife over the golden boy of Wall Street. And now? Now I want justice. She leaned forward. I have recordings, Melanie. Phone calls, meetings, everything. I started documenting when things felt wrong, but I was too scared to come forward. I pressed the intercom. Sabrina, get Dorian in here. And call Tyrone. Within minutes, my husband and our private investigator joined us. Dorian's eyes widened when he saw Isabel. Well, this is unexpected, he said, taking the seat beside me. Show them, I told Isabel. She played the recordings. Caden's voice filled the room, bragging about dummy corporations, laughing about fooling investors, planning to blame others when it all fell apart. With each recording, my parents' chances of claiming ignorance grew stronger. This is exactly what we need, Tyrone said, taking notes. Combined with the financial records we leaked, This proves premeditation. Leaked? Isabel looked at me sharply. That was you? I've been collecting evidence for years, I admitted, waiting for the right moment. God, she whispered. You're even more strategic than he is. Difference is, I use my powers for good, I smiled. Usually. My phone buzzed. A text from the security gate. Speaking of strategy, our parents are requesting an urgent meeting. Apparently, Caden's been calling them non-stop. Perfect timing, Dorian said. Should we show them what their precious son is planning? I stood up, straightening my jacket. Better idea. Let's have a full family reunion. Isabel, are you up for a confrontation? She squared her shoulders. After what you put me through? Absolutely. Tyrone, call your contact at the FBI. Tell them to be ready. Sabrina, have security let my parents in, then call Caden. Tell him Mum and Dad are ready to help him escape. You're setting a trap, Isabel realised. I'm finishing what you started, I corrected. Dorian, get the cameras ready in the dining room. Everything needs to be recorded. 20 minutes later, my parents sat nervously at the dining table while Isabel waited in the study. They jumped when Sabrina entered. He's here, she announced. I took my position at the head of the table. Showtime. Caden burst in, looking dishevelled in his wrinkled suit. Mum, Dad, we need to move fast. I have a plan. He froze when he saw me. Hello, brother, I said calmly. Please join us. We were just discussing family loyalty. What is this? He demanded, looking at our parents. Sit down, Caden, I ordered. You'll want to be sitting for what comes next. I'm not playing your games, Melanie, he spat. Mum, Dad, we need to go now. They're not going anywhere, I said. But someone else is joining us. On cue, Isabel walked in. The colour drained from Caden's face. Remember those late-night phone calls? She asked sweetly. The ones where you planned to blame your father? I recorded them all. Caden lunged for the door, but security blocked his path. Now then, I smiled, pressing the intercom. Sabrina, please tell our friends from the FBI they can come in. I believe my brother has a confession to make. The look of betrayal on Caden's face was almost worth the decade of pain he'd caused. Almost. You set me up, he whispered. No, dear brother, I corrected him. You set yourself up. I just made sure everyone could see it. The FBI agents entered as our parents watched in horror, finally understanding the full scope of their golden child's deception. Just as I thought. Watching them put handcuffs on my brother tastes better than revenge. You can't do this! Caden struggled against the handcuffs. Mum, Dad, tell them. Tell them I was doing this for the family. Mom sat frozen, mascara running down her face. Dad stared at his hands, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Mrs. Weaver, Mr. Weaver, the lead FBI agent said, will need your statements about your involvement in your son's investment scheme. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. Actually, I have something that might help clarify their role. I nodded to Sabrina, who brought in a thick folder. Financial records showing my parents were victims, not accomplices. Bank statements proving they invested their retirement based on fraudulent information. Melanie, what are you doing? Caden hissed. Saving them from you, I replied calmly. One last time. The FBI agent flipped through the documents. This is very thorough. It clearly shows they were misled about the nature of the investments. You can't trust her, Caden shouted. She's been plotting this for years. Plotting what? I asked innocently. To preserve evidence of your crimes? To protect our parents from your schemes? Yes, guilty as charged. Isabel stepped forward, holding up her phone. I have the recordings ready, Agent Roberts, including the ones where Caden explicitly discusses hiding information from his parents. Mum finally found her voice. You were going to blame your father, your own father. I had no choice. Caden's composure cracked. The investments went bad. People were asking questions. Dad's name was on some of the paperwork. Paperwork you forged, Isabel cut in. Just like you forged my signature on those offshore accounts. The agents began leading Caden toward the door. He thrashed against their grip, his perfectly tailored suit now wrinkled and damp with sweat. You'll regret this, Melanie, he shouted. You think you're so perfect with your tech empire and your revenge. You're nothing but a bitter little girl playing businesswoman. I walked up to him slowly, maintaining eye contact. No, Caden. I'm the woman who beat you at your own game. The difference is I did it legally. Everything I built is real. Everything you built was a lie. After they took him away, silence fell over the dining room. Mom's quiet sobs were the only sound. Why? Dad finally asked. Why did you protect us? After everything we did? Because I'm not like him, I said simply. Or you. I don't destroy family for personal gain, even when they deserve it. We don't deserve your mercy, Mom whispered. No, you don't. I sat back down. But this isn't mercy. This is strategy. You'll spend the rest of your lives knowing that the daughter you dismissed saved you from the son you worshipped. Isabel gathered her things. I should go. The FBI will need me to make a formal statement. Thank you, I told her, for being brave enough to come forward. After she left, I turned back to my parents. Your 6 months in the guest house isn't over. You'll continue working, continue attending our dinners, but now you'll do it knowing exactly what your choices have cost you. And Caden? Mum asked tremulously. Will likely serve 15 to 20 years, I replied, unless he makes a deal. But given his performance today, I doubt he'll admit guilt easily. Dad stood up shakily. We should have seen it. All those signs. You saw exactly what you wanted to see, I corrected him. Just like you saw what you wanted to see in me. A disappointment, a failure, an embarrassment. We were wrong, Mum said. So terribly wrong. Yes, you were. I pressed the intercom. Sabrina, please escort my parents back to the guest house. They have roses to prune tomorrow. As they shuffled toward the door, I called out, Oh, and one more thing. Those documents protecting you from prosecution, they're real, but they can disappear as easily as they appeared. Remember that the next time you're tempted to contact Caden. They nodded, broken and humbled, before following Sabrina out. Dorian came in after they left, wrapping his arms around me. You okay? I leaned into his embrace, finally allowing myself to feel the weight of what had just happened. I thought revenge would feel better than this. It's not revenge, he said softly. It's justice. With a side of mercy they didn't earn. The mercy is the revenge, I replied. They'll spend the rest of their lives knowing they owe everything to the daughter they rejected. That's a debt they can never repay. Through the window, I watched my parents cross the lawn to their temporary home, their shoulders bent under the weight of their choices. Come on, Dorian said. Let's go home. The real home, where we started. That little apartment where we dreamed all this up. I smiled, remembering those hungry, determined days. You still have those paper napkins with our first business plan? Framed in my office, he grinned. Right next to our courthouse wedding photo. Sometimes, I realised, the best revenge isn't destruction. It's rising so high that those who hurt you have to look up to see you. The morning sun streamed through my office windows as I reviewed the final paperwork. My parents' 6-month stay had ended yesterday, and they'd left quietly, without ceremony or goodbye. Just a simple note. We understand now. Sabrina knocked on my door. The construction crew is ready for the groundbreaking. Everyone's waiting in the courtyard. I gathered my things, including a worn paper napkin in a simple frame. Our original business plan, sketched out in that tiny apartment so long ago. Outside, a crowd had gathered around the cordoned-off area where the guest house used to stand. In its place would rise the Henry Tech Innovation Lab, a training centre for underprivileged students interested in tech. Dorian waited for me at the podium, grinning. Ready to build something new? Always! I squeezed his hand before turning to address the crowd. 10 years ago, I was told I didn't belong in tech, I began. That my dreams were too big, my background too humble, my ambitions inappropriate. Today, we break ground on a centre dedicated to proving those doubts wrong, the audience applauded. In the back, I spotted Isabel, who gave me a small wave. After testifying against Caden, she'd found her voice. And a new career in corporate compliance. Success isn't about pedigree or privilege, I continued. It's about persistence. Every student who walks through these doors will learn that lesson. They'll learn that validation doesn't come from family names or trust funds. It comes from creating real value in the world. As I lifted the ceremonial shovel, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Saw the announcement about the innovation lab. Finally understood what you meant about real value. We're sorry. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without responding. Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt, and shouldn't be. After the ceremony, Dorian and I walked the grounds, stopping at the spot where the guest house had stood. No regrets about demolishing it? He asked. None, I replied. Best to build something meaningful than preserve a monument to revenge. Sabrina approached with a tablet. The press releases are going out. And there's news about Caden. He took a plea deal this morning. Let me guess. Turned on all his co-conspirators? She nodded. 12 years with possibility of parole. He's also required to make full restitution to his victims. Including your parents, Dorian added quietly. They made their choices, I said, watching the construction crews begin their work. Just like I made mine. Back in my office, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out an old photo, my courthouse wedding day. Dorian and I, young and determined, standing on those cold steps. I placed it next to the framed napkin. Miss Henry, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. The first round of scholarship applications for the Innovation Lab has arrived. Send them in, I replied, then turned to Dorian. Want to help me find the next tech revolutionaries? He sat beside me, just like that night in our tiny kitchen, always. As we read through the applications, stories of determination, of dreams bigger than circumstances, I realised something profound. My revenge hadn't just been about making my family suffer. It had been about proving that their values were hollow, that real success comes from creating, not destroying. Look at this one, Dorian pointed to an application. Reminds me of someone I know. Brilliant ideas, no connections. Family thinks she's wasting her time. I smiled, reading the young woman's passionate pitch. Schedule an interview and send her a message. Your dreams are not too big. Your ambitions are not inappropriate. And yes, you absolutely belong here. The construction sounds outside grew louder, destruction and creation happening simultaneously. Perfect symmetry. You know, Dorian said, your parents might see these scholarship stories in the press. They might try to reach out again. They might, I agreed. But I'm not that desperate daughter anymore, waiting for their approval. I'm not even that angry woman plotting revenge. I'm just me, building something real. He kissed my forehead. And that's why I married you in that courthouse. I looked out at the construction site, where the future was literally taking shape. My parents had taught me about power through cruelty. Caden had taught me about success through deception. But I'd learned something better. True power comes from lifting others up, not pushing them down. The sun set over Los Angeles, painting my empire in shades of gold. Not the false gold of my brother's schemes, but the real gold of innovation, of creation, of genuine value. They thought my courthouse wedding was too humble for their status. They never understood that humility, combined with determination, builds empires that last. And that's worth more than revenge could ever be.
You know we wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious, sweetheart. My mother's voice cracked as she reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Her nails were perfectly manicured. Red tips, like always. Her eyes, though, were glassy and wet. Dad sat beside her, silent, his hands clenched in his lap like he was bracing for impact. I looked at both of them, then at the untouched tea in front of me. Something in my gut twisted, but I didn't say anything yet. We're scared, she continued. The bills are piling up, and the insurance is being difficult. Dad finally spoke. It's my heart, Lil. The doctor said I need a procedure, sooner rather than later. My name is Lillian, and I've always been the responsible one. The one who paid her own way through college, who freelanced double shifts to save for a condo, who never asked for help. The one who got the "you're so mature" pats on the back, while my younger brother, Clark, got everything else. Didn't you say it was your back last time? I asked, trying to keep my voice even. Dad shifted. It's both now. Things are deteriorating. And the hospital won't cover it? They're dragging their feet, Mum said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. We're drowning, honey. We didn't know who else to turn to. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding. $32,000. That's what I had in my savings. It was supposed to be my down payment, my escape plan, my future. Clark doesn't have anything, I asked, and immediately regretted it. Mum's face hardened. Clark's still trying to find steady work. He's not in a position to help. Right, I said, biting my tongue. Dad cleared his throat. We hate to ask, Lil. We really do. But if there's any way you could help, even just a portion, we'd pay you back, every cent. I looked at them. My parents, aging, desperate, eyes full of pleading. And despite the warning bells in my head, despite the memories of Clark borrowing my laptop and selling it in high school, despite the time Mum guilt-tripped me into paying her credit card minimum just this once, I nodded. "I'll transfer it tonight," I said quietly. Mum let out a sob and threw her arms around me. "You're saving us," she whispered. "You're saving your father." Dad looked at me with watery eyes and nodded. "Thank you, baby girl. You're our rock." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Later that night, I stared at my bank app for a long time before I hit send. The number blinked at me like a dare. $32,000, gone in a single tap. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just closed the app and laid back on my bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. 3 days later, I was waiting for my coffee order when I opened Instagram, just killing time. I wasn't expecting anything, but there it was. A photo, champagne flutes clinking, a yacht in the background, my mother in oversized sunglasses, laughing, my dad in a linen shirt holding a cigar, Clark, of course, front and centre, shirtless with his arms out like he was the king of the damn world. The caption read, "Hospital gowns traded for Italian ones. You're blessed a pal family trip?" My thumb froze. My stomach dropped. I blinked, thinking maybe I was seeing things. I clicked on the tag. Athena's profile, Clark's girlfriend, the kind of girl who posted 5 times a day and thought filters were a personality. Her latest story was a boomerang of them boarding a boat, complete with a pre-Europe vibes sticker and a song I didn't recognise. I clicked the comments. "Your sister really is that gullible haha." Clark had replied with a laughing emoji. "I don't remember walking out of the coffee shop. I don't remember getting into my car. I just remember sitting in the driver's seat, phone in my lap, staring at the screen like it had personally punched me in the face. They lied. They lied to me. They looked me in the eye, cried, begged, and stole from me. Not borrowed, stole. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. I thought about the time I was 10, and Clark broke Mum's favourite vase. She found me in the living room and slapped the back of my head before I could even explain. "Don't lie," she said. "Be better than this." I thought about the time Clark crashed my car, and they made me apologise for leaving it out where he could take it. I thought about every time I swallowed my anger, every time I played the good daughter, the responsible one, the fixer, and I thought about that $32,000. Every hour I worked, every weekend I skipped plans to save, every time I said no to myself so I could say yes to a future. Gone. I should have called them. I should have screamed. But I didn't. Instead, I closed the app. I wiped my face. I drove home. That Sunday, I showed up for dinner like I always did. I brought dessert. I complimented Mum's new dress. I asked Dad how he was feeling. And when Clark walked in, grinning like the smug little prince he's always been, I smiled right back. "Oh, Lil," he said, throwing an arm around me. "You're seriously the best sister in the world." "Thanks, Clark," I said, pouring him a glass of wine. "I try." I watched them eat. I watched them laugh. I watched them toast to good health and new adventures. And I smiled, because I knew something they didn't. They thought I was the same girl who always forgave, who always gave in. They were wrong. They just didn't know it yet. I couldn't stop scrolling. Every tap of my thumb felt like a punch to the gut, but I couldn't stop. Athena had posted a full album now, 12 photos of their Bon Voyage bash, one of Clark in designer sunglasses, throwing cash in the air like he was in a rap video, another of my mom sipping champagne in a silk robe, my dad asleep on a beach chair, sunburnt and snoring, and then the one that broke me. It was a group shot, the whole family minus me posing on the yacht's deck. The caption read, "Nothing like family." I stared at it until the screen blurred from the tears I refused to let fall. I clicked the comments. "Where's your sister?" someone asked. Athena had replied, "She's more of a homebody. She couldn't swing it, financially." Clark had liked the comment. I dropped my phone on the couch and stood up too fast. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a belt around my ribs and started pulling. I stormed into the kitchen, opened the fridge, closed it again. My hands were shaking. I gripped the counter, trying to breathe. The worst part wasn't the money. It wasn't even the lie. It was the joke. The way they laughed about it. Like I was some pathetic joke in their group chat. The gullible sister. The one who always believed their sob stories. The one who paid and stayed behind. My phone buzzed. Cecilia, I picked up. Hey, she said. You okay? You sound like you're breathing through a straw. They used me, I said, voice flat. They stole from me and then posted it like a vacation ad. There was a pause on the line. What are you talking about? I told her. Everything. The fake medical bills, the yacht, the comments, Clark's emoji. I didn't even realize I was pacing the kitchen until I bumped into the table. Lil, she said slowly, you need to come over? I can't. I'll cry or scream or both. Good. Do it here. I've got wine and a punching pillow. I laughed, but it came out like a cough. I don't know what to do. Don't do anything yet, she said. Just feel it. Then we'll figure it out. I hung up and sank onto the floor. The tile was cold. My cheeks were burning. I thought about when I was 8, and Clark had stolen the $20 I'd saved from birthdays. I found the empty envelope under his bed. When I told Mum, she said, "He's your brother. Don't be petty." I thought about when I got into college and no one came to move me in because Clark had a very important soccer tryout the same day. I thought about every time they made me feel like a burden for asking for fairness. And I thought about that comment again. She's more of a homebody. She couldn't swing it financially. I stood up. No more crying, no more pacing, no more swallowing it. I grabbed my phone and went back to the post. I stared at Clark's smug face and tapped on his profile. His bio read, entrepreneur, dream chaser, family first. I nearly threw the phone across the room. Instead, I hit the message button, but I didn't type anything. Not yet. The next night, I sat at the dinner table again. Mum had made her famous roast. Dad was already on his second glass of wine. Clark was scrolling through his phone like he hadn't just posted my betrayal to the internet. So, I said, cutting into my food. How's your heart, Dad? He blinked. Oh, better. The meds are helping. Thought you needed surgery? Mum jumped in. Well, we got a second opinion. Turns out we might have overreacted. You know how hospitals are. Clark snorted. You should have seen Mum when the yacht rocked. She screamed like the boat was sinking. Everyone laughed. Except me. I smiled. Glad you're feeling better. Clark looked up. You okay, Lil? You've been quiet. Just tired, I said. Work's been crazy. Still doing those app things? Yep, he shrugged. You should take a break sometime. Come to Europe with us next month. I tilted my head. Oh, you're going again? Yeah, he said, grinning. Athena's planning the whole thing. First class, baby. Italy, Greece, maybe Spain. Depends on the vibe. Dad chuckled. We're just tagging along. She's got the itinerary down to a science. Mum reached over and patted my hand. You should come, sweetheart. We'll figure something out. Thanks, I said. But I'm still recovering from the last medical emergency. Clark snorted into his drink. Mum's smile faltered. Well, health is priceless, right? I nodded. So is trust. The silence that followed was sharp. I stood and started clearing the plates. Don't worry, I said over my shoulder. I'll clean up. It was the least I could do. After all, I had a plan to make, and I needed them to keep thinking I was the same gullible little girl who'd always clean up their messes. Because revenge tastes better when it's served with a smile. You want to do what? Reuben asked, blinking at me from across the table. We were at a small cafe downtown, the kind with chipped mugs and indie music playing too loud. He was still wearing his accountant badge on a lanyard, half tucked into his shirt. I could tell he thought I was joking. I want to give them a credit card, I said, sipping my coffee. He leaned back, eyebrows raised. After they conned you out of 32 grand, you want to hand them more money? Not exactly. I want to hand them a leash. He stared at me for a second, then let out a low whistle. Okay, walk me through it. I pulled out a folder from my bag and slid it across the table. I open a new emergency card under my name, low limit. 5 grand, tops. I attach it to a separate account. One I control. I'll tell them it's for medical expenses, just in case something comes up while they're travelling. Reuben flipped through the papers. His eyes scanned fast. You want to track their spending? More than that, I said. I want to bait them. Let them get comfortable. Let them think I'm still the same old Lillian. He looked up. And then? I leaned in. Then I pull the rug. Reuben set the folder down and rubbed his jaw. You know this is walking a fine line, right? Legally, you're not doing anything wrong. Morally, I'm not stealing from them, I said. I'm just letting them expose themselves. He studied me for a moment. You always were the quiet one. But damn, I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Are you sure you're ready for what happens if you go through with this? He asked. No, I said, but I'm doing it anyway. He nodded slowly. All right, I'll help you set it up, but you need to document everything. Emails, texts, receipts, screenshots. Keep a paper trail. I already started, I said, pulling out a small notebook from my bag. Every lie, every post, every time they mention a fake doctor's appointment. He gave a short laugh. You're scarier than I remember. Good. We spent the next hour going over the logistics. By the time I left the cafe, the card was in the works, and the account was ready. I walked home with my hands deep in my coat pockets, heart pounding like I'd just pulled off a heist. The next day, I showed up at my parents' house with a small envelope. What's this? Mum asked, flipping it over. Just something to help, I said. It's a backup card, for emergencies, real ones. Her eyes lit up. Lillian, you didn't have to do that. I wanted to, I lied. Just in case you need medication or a cab to the hospital or whatever. Dad took the envelope and peeked inside. You're too good to us. I smiled. I just want you to be safe. Clark walked in from the kitchen, chewing something. What's that? Emergency card, Mum said, waving it. Clark raised an eyebrow. Nice. Can I use it for my back pain? Might need a massage in Santorini. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. That night, I opened my laptop and logged into the account. No charges yet. I clicked through the settings, set up alerts for every transaction, and linked it to a spreadsheet Reuben had built for me. Then I opened a new folder on my desktop and labelled it. Receipts. The next few weeks were a masterclass in acting. I helped them pack. I drove them to fake doctor's appointments. I listened to Mom lie about follow-ups and specialists and nodded like I believed her. I even brought soup one night, just to sell it harder. Every time Clark bragged about the trip, I smiled and asked questions. What airline? Which hotel? Oh, that sounds amazing. Meanwhile, Athena's Instagram was a gold mine. She posted everything. Flight confirmations, luggage hauls, spa bookings. She even tagged the hotel they'd be staying at in Rome. I took screenshots of everything, dated them, filed them. Cecilia called me every night. You okay? She'd ask. Getting there, I'd say. You're holding a lot in. I know. You don't have to be strong every second. I know. One night, Mum called me crying. I just wanted to say thank you, baby. We'd never survive without you. I had my phone on speaker, the recorder app running. You don't have to thank me, I said gently. I'm just glad I can help. You're a blessing, she said. Clark says so too. I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about dignity. They took mine, and I was going to take it back, inch by inch, lie by lie. The next morning, I got my first alert. $87.50, high-end spa. I smiled. The card was live. The game had started. Can you drive us to the clinic next Tuesday? Mum asked, folding another sundress into her suitcase. I nodded. Of course. What time? 9:30. It's just a check-up for your dad. Nothing major. Dad walked by holding a pair of swim trunks. Should I pack the red ones or the navy? Mum didn't miss a beat. Red. They pop in photos. I held back a laugh. For the clinic. She froze for a split second, then smiled. No, for the trip. After the appointments. Right, I said, zipping up the side of her luggage. Gotta look good for recovery. Clark strolled in, shirtless as usual, sunglasses on his head, like he was already in Ibiza. "You all packed, Ma?" "Almost. Just making sure we've got everything. Lillian's helping." Clark smirked. "Of course she is." I didn't respond. I just folded another blouse and laid it on top of her jewellery case. "I booked our massages for day 2, he said, checking his phone. "And Athena wants to do a wine tour in Tuscany. She's calling it Content with Culture." Dad chuckled. "As long as there's wine, I'm in." Mom turned to me. "You sure you don't want to come, honey? It's not too late." "I'll be here," I said, holding down the fort. Clark threw an arm around me. "You're the real MVP." I smiled and patted his back. "Someone's got to be." Later that afternoon, I drove them to the clinic. It was a beige building in a strip mall, wedged between a vape shop and a nail salon. Mum had me drop them off at the front, saying the appointment would take a while. I parked around the corner and waited. 10 minutes later, I watched them walk out the back door and into a rideshare. I snapped a photo from my car. I followed the app on my phone as the card pinged another charge. $42.75 at a seafood bistro downtown. I took a screenshot. That night, I FaceTimed Cecilia. "They faked a doctor's appointment and went to lunch," I said, showing her the photo. She raised her eyebrows. "They're not even trying to hide it. They think I'm still blind. And you're just keeping cool." "Barely." She leaned in. "You're playing a dangerous game." "I know. Do you feel better?" "No," I said, "but I feel clearer." The next few days were more of the same. "Can you pick up Dad's prescription?" Mom texted. "Of course," I replied. I drove to the pharmacy, asked for the name, and got a confused look from the cashier. "There's nothing under that name," she said. "Maybe it hasn't been filled yet," I said, smiling. "Thanks anyway." I walked out and made another note in my journal. Entry 17, non-existent prescription, confirmed lie. That night, Clark called me. "Yo, Lil, you still have that emergency card?" "Yeah, why?" "Just making sure. Athena wants to book a last-minute facial before we fly out. Says she's breaking out from stress." I bit my lip. "Is that a medical emergency?" He laughed. "You're hilarious." I didn't laugh. "Yeah, it's fine," I said. "Just keep it under 500. Cool. You're the best." Another ping came through an hour later. 312 Girls orders. Luxury skincare boutique. I didn't even flinch. The night before their flight, I helped them load the car. "Don't forget your passport," I said, handing it to Mum. "I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached." She joked. Dad kissed my cheek. "We'll bring you something nice." Clark tossed his suitcase into the trunk. "Don't miss us too much." Athena pulled up in her convertible, snapping selfies as she got out. "Ready to jet set?" she squealed. "Always," Clark said, grabbing her waist. I took a step back and watched them pose together. "Group photo," Athena called. Mum waved me over. "Get in, Lil." I smiled and held up the phone. "I'll take it. Say, scam deluce." Everyone laughed. I took the photo, then another, then one more for good measure. Then I walked over, hugged Mom tightly and whispered, "Be safe." She squeezed my hand. "We'll call you from Rome." Dad gave me a thumbs up. "Thanks for everything, sweetheart." Clark winked. "Don't spend all your time working while we're gone." Athena blew me a kiss. "Love you, girl." I waved as they drove off. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the folder. Screenshots, photos, receipts, notes. I clicked record on a voice memo and said, "Final prep complete, departure confirmed, card active." I ended the recording and saved it. The next morning, I got a text from Ruben. "All systems green. You ready?" I typed back. "Let's do this." The trap was set. Now all I had to do was wait for them to walk into it. Athena's voice blasted through my phone speaker before I even opened the app. "First class, baby! Rome, here we come!" Her Instagram story was a blur of designer luggage, boarding passes, and Clark doing a stupid little dance in front of the airport lounge sign. My parents were in the background, Mom adjusting her scarf, Dad sipping something from a paper cup with that smug, retired golfer on vacation look. I paused the video and zoomed in on the boarding pass. Delta. Flight 214, gate B12, departing 6:45 p.m. Gotcha. I opened the emergency card app. They'd been busy. A $1,200 charge at a boutique hotel near LAX. Another $300 on travel upgrades. And then the one I'd been waiting for. $600 for a last-minute luxury car rental. I smiled and tapped the flag transaction button. The app asked for a reason. I selected unauthorized use. Then I hit confirm. A few seconds later, a fraud alert email popped into my inbox. Subject: suspicious activity detected on your emergency card. Perfect. I grabbed my keys and headed out the door. Cecilia called as I pulled into the rental car lot across from the airport. You sure you want to do this? She asked. I'm not doing anything illegal, I said. Just letting the system work. You're sitting in a parking lot watching your parents get flagged by airport security. Technically, I'm watching from a legal distance. She sighed. You're scaring me a little. I'm scaring myself a little. A pause. Do you want me to come? No, I said. This part, I need to do alone. I hung up and stared at the terminal in the distance. Inside, my family was probably laughing, sipping overpriced wine, and filming more content for Athena's followers. I opened Instagram again. She just posted a new story. OMG, our flight is delayed, but at least we're vibing in the lounge. Cheetah, first-class problems, I tapped through. Then I froze. The next clip was a shaky video of a man in a security vest walking up to them. Athena's voice. Wait. What? Clark. Is this a joke? Mum. There must be a mistake. My daughter gave us that card. The camera panned to Dad, who was red in the face and fumbling through his wallet. Then the story cut off. I refreshed the app. A new story popped up. Athena, whispering into the camera, wide-eyed. Y'all, we just got pulled aside because of a flagged card. They're saying it's fraud. Like, what the actual... Clark's voice in the background. Are we getting arrested? I took a deep breath and leaned back in my seat. My hands were shaking. Not from guilt, from adrenaline. My phone buzzed. Blocked number. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. Lillian? Mum's voice snapped through the line. What did you do? Hi, Mum. Don't play dumb with me. The card was declined, security flagged us, and now we're being told the account might be frozen. What is going on? I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding, I said, keeping my voice calm. You know how banks are. Don't you dare, she hissed. You gave us that card for emergencies. I did. And now we're stuck at the airport with no way to pay for anything. Sounds like an emergency, I said. Maybe try calling the hospital. There was a pause. Then, you ungrateful little... I hung up. A text came in a second later. Clark. What the hell is wrong with you? I didn't reply. Another one followed. Clark. You're ruining everything. You're jealous. That's what this is. I turned off my phone. I sat in that car for another hour, watching the sun dip behind the terminal and the planes take off, one by one. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty, like I'd just burned a bridge I'd spent my whole life trying to build. But then I thought about the $32,000. I thought about every lie they told, every time they made me feel small, every Instagram post that mocked me, and I remembered why I had to do this. Not to ruin them, but to stop letting them ruin me. I turned my phone back on. Athena had posted again. A blurry selfie in front of the airport bathroom mirror. Caption, OMG, deceit in the air. I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened the Notes app and typed, Phase 2, complete. Next stop, the reckoning. From the parking lot, I could see the terminal's glass front lit up in the late evening sun. People wheeled suitcases, hugged goodbye, rushed through sliding doors. I stayed in my car, engine off, phone in hand. Ruben's name lit up my screen. I answered. Talk to me. They've been pulled from the gate, he said. Security flagged the card, and when they tried to use another one, it declined too. I guess your dad's gambling caught up. I blinked. Wait, what? Yeah. I ran a light check on his accounts like you asked. His main card's frozen for unpaid debt. Looks like the airline wouldn't let them board without another form of payment. I stared at the terminal. So? They're grounded. They're not just grounded, Ruben said. They're humiliated. Athena was live streaming when it happened. What? Check her page. I opened Instagram. Sure enough, there she was. Shaky footage, her voice high and panicked. I can't believe this. They flagged our card, and now we're being escorted out of the lounge like criminals. This is insane. Camera pans to Clark, red-faced and yelling. Call my sister. She did this. She's insane. My mother's voice cuts in, shrill. We're not criminals. That's our daughter's card. The video ends with Athena turning the camera on herself. This is so embarrassing. I'm literally shaking. I exhaled slowly. They're unraveling. Ruben chuckled. You wanted karma. Looks like it showed up early. Where are they now? From what I can tell, they're at a motel across the freeway. One of those budget ones with a flickering sign. They tried booking somewhere nicer, but, you know. I looked down at my hands. They were steady now. Thanks, Ruben. Be careful, Lil, he said. They're not going to take this lightly. I'm not afraid of them anymore. I hung up and started the car. It took me 5 minutes to pull into the cracked parking lot of the motel. The sign buzzed overhead. Vacancy flickering like a dying firefly. A couple argued near the vending machine. Somewhere, a baby cried. I spotted them instantly. Clark was pacing outside room 12, phone pressed to his ear, yelling into the receiver. Mum sat on a plastic chair, arms crossed, sunglasses on even though the sun was nearly gone. Dad leaned against the wall, rubbing his temples. Athena was nowhere in sight. I parked across the lot and waited. Watched. Clark threw his phone down and kicked a trash can. She's not answering. She better answer, Mum snapped. This is her fault. Dad muttered something I couldn't hear. I got out of the car and walked straight toward them. Mum spotted me first. She stood up so fast the chair tipped over. You, she hissed. What did you do? I stopped 3 feet from them. I gave you a card for emergencies. You used it for spa days and car rentals. Clark stepped forward. You set us up. No, I said calmly. You set yourselves up. I just kept the receipts. I pulled a manila folder from my bag and handed it to Mum. What is this? She snapped. Proof of everything. The fake appointments, the charges, the screenshots, the lies. She opened it, flipping through pages. Her hands started to shake. Clark snatched it from her. This is insane. You stalked us? No, I said. I watched. There's a difference. Dad looked up at me. You humiliated us. You stole from me, I said, voice rising. You lied to my face. You cried in my living room and told me Dad needed surgery. You drained my savings and laughed about it online. Clark threw the folder to the ground. Papers scattered across the concrete. You're bitter, he spat. You've always been bitter because you're boring and alone. I smiled. And you're broke and grounded. He lunged at me. Dad grabbed his arm. Clark, stop! Mum was crying now, mascara running. We're your family. You taught me that family means loyalty, I said. But only when it benefits you. Clark pulled away from Dad and grabbed a plastic cup from the ground. He hurled it at me. It bounced off my shoulder. Then he picked up a glass ashtray from the windowsill and threw it. It shattered at my feet. I didn't flinch. I looked at the shards, then back at him. That's the last thing you'll ever throw at me. Without another word, I turned and walked back to my car. Behind me, Mum was sobbing. Clark was yelling. Dad was silent. I got in, shut the door, and drove away. I didn't look back. Not once. The motel room door creaked open before I even knocked. Mum stood there, eyes puffy, hair a mess, makeup smeared like war paint. She looked 10 years older than she had 2 days ago. You came back, she said, surprised. I'm not here to fight, I said. I'm here to finish this. She stepped aside. I walked in. The room smelled like mildew and fast food. The curtains were drawn tight. Clark sat on the bed, arms crossed, face hard. Dad was by the window, staring out like he might escape through the glass. No one said anything. I dropped a second folder onto the table. This one was thicker. Clark scoffed. Another presentation? This one's got everything, I said. The bank statements, the flagged charges, the screenshots from Athena's stories, the messages, even your comment about me being gullible. Mum sat down slowly and opened the folder. Her hands trembled as she flipped the pages. Where did you get all this? She asked. I documented everything, I said. Every lie, every swipe of that card, every fake appointment. You gave me all the material, I just organised it. Clark stood up. You're insane. You've lost your mind. No, I said. I finally found it. Dad turned around. What do you want from us? An apology? You've made your point. I looked at him. I want accountability. Clark laughed. You want us to grovel? Is that it? No, I said. I want you to hear yourselves. I want you to sit in this room and realise you've hit rock bottom because of your own choices, not because of me. Mum wiped her face. We were desperate. No, I said. You were greedy. You saw my savings and thought, why not? She won't fight back. Dad sat down, rubbing his temples. We didn't think it would go this far. Of course not, I said, because I've always cleaned up the mess, paid the bills, smiled through the insults, but not this time. Clark picked up the folder and threw it across the room. You're pathetic. I turned to him. You're 25 and living off your parents' lies. You think you're untouchable. You think being loud makes you right. But you're not special, Clark. You're just spoiled. He lunged forward. Say that again. Sit down, Dad snapped, standing up. Clark froze, shocked. I said sit down, Dad repeated. You've done enough. Clark backed off, fuming. Mum looked at me, eyes glassy. We didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't care if you did, I said. She covered her face with her hands. I thought we could fix it later. You thought I'd forget, I said. Like always. The room went quiet. I walked over to the nightstand and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a printed letter. I handed it to Mum. What's this? She asked. A list of every dollar you took, with interest. I'm not expecting repayment, but I want you to know what it cost me. She unfolded it slowly. Her lips moved as she read. Her face crumpled. I was going to buy a condo, I said. I had a plan, a future. You stole that from me. Clark muttered, You're so dramatic. I turned to him. You're so irrelevant. He stood up again, but this time no one stopped him. He grabbed his phone and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Dad sat back down, exhausted. What happens now? You stay here, I said. You figure out how to get home. You live with the consequences. Mum looked up. And you? I go back to my life, I said. Without you in it. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked like she wanted to beg, but she didn't. I walked to the door. I loved you, I said, hand on the knob. I still do, but I won't let you keep hurting me. I opened the door. Behind me, Mum whispered, I'm sorry. I didn't turn around. I walked out into the night, the air cool and sharp. The glass from Clark's earlier tantrums still glittered on the pavement. I stepped over it. My hands were steady. My heart was pounding. But I was free. The pizza box steamed on my tiny kitchen counter, and Cecilia popped open a bottle of wine with a dramatic flourish. To new beginnings, she said, raising her glass. I clinked mine against hers. To quiet. We sat on the floor because I didn't have a couch yet. My new apartment was small. 1 bedroom, no balcony, no dishwasher. But it was mine. The walls were bare. The air smelled like fresh paint. And the silence was the kind that didn't suffocate. Cecilia took a bite of pizza and looked around. It's cute, minimalist, very, I burned my past and now I sleep peacefully. I laughed. That's the vibe I'm going for. She leaned back on one hand. How are you really feeling? I hesitated. Lighter, but not happy? Not yet. Because of them? No, I said. Because of me. Revenge felt good in the moment, but it didn't fix the hole they left. She nodded slowly. You did what you had to do. I know. My phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't move. Cecilia glanced at it. Them? Probably. I blocked their numbers, but Clark keeps trying from random ones. Athena too. Still, I shrugged. Last one said, "You ruined our family. Hope you're proud." Cecilia scoffed. They ruined themselves. I took a sip of wine. I don't think they'll ever see it that way. She watched me for a second. Do you want them to? No, I said. I just want them far away. She raised her glass again. To boundaries. To boundaries, I echoed. We ate in silence for a while. The city buzzed outside, but in here it was calm. Eventually, Cecilia stood and stretched. I should head out. You need sleep. Thanks for coming. Always. She hugged me tight. You're not alone, okay? I know. After she left, I stood at the window and looked out at the streetlights. Cars passed below, headlights casting slow-moving shadows on the walls. I picked up my phone and opened Instagram one last time. Athena had posted a new story, a moody black and white selfie, captioned, "Can't trust anyone, even family. So tight." I clicked on the comments. Clark had written, "Still not over it, but I got what I deserved." I stared at it. Then I opened my photo gallery, selected every picture of my family and hit delete. One by one, they vanished. I closed the app. I turned off the phone, and I breathed.